Chapter 1191. Before meeting you, I had never felt anything for any woman. After meeting you, I finally understood what it means to be moved. Maybe I was born for you. System, these words of love are really mushy. Tang Gui chuckled. Young Master Bei Tang is a sincere person, but also a cunning person. I think that in this world, no one can resist a person's sincerity. Bei Tanghua didn't say anything, only looking at her with a smile. Yes, he was indeed a cunning person. He was slowly letting her get used to his goodness, letting her experience the goodness that she couldn't experience in the past. Then, she would discover that in this world, there was no one else like Bei Tanghua, and no one with a heart as sincere as Bei Tanghua. You only need to arrange for a wave of bandits. Things will proceed according to what I said before. I'll take care of the rest. Bei Tanghua suddenly thought of something and asked, Miss Tang's memories didn't change, then did second Miss Tang also? That's right, she also didn't. Bei Tanghua nodded. He also felt that Tang Jiao was a little strange. The temperament she was displaying now was clearly different from what he had heard before. Tang Jiao was a lively girl who loved landscape paintings and sightseeing. But the current Tang Jiao clearly didn't know about worldly things, and was extravagant and lascivious. It was obvious that she had been spoiled rotten. It turned out that everything was just an act by the two sisters to teach the two brothers a lesson. He felt that there was a reason behind this, but he couldn't guess it at the moment. Hearing Tanghua's words, Bei Tanghua immediately ordered people to arrange for bandits. After giving the instructions, the next day, he brought Tanghua and left with the convoy of the Northern Yan Kingdom's envoy. Because Northern Yan was not inferior to Nanshu, and was even stronger than Nanshu, especially in terms of military strength. When the Northern Yan envoy group was about to leave, Shangguan Yi especially came to send them off. He also glanced at the low-profile horse carriage. It did not attract any special attention, and no one would know that the person sitting in the horse carriage was Tanghua. He only thought that it was some minister who had sent a beauty to the envoy of the Northern Yan country. There were many such situations, so he did not bother about it. After bidding farewell to Bei Tanghua, he couldn't help but look at the carriage again. When the wind blew the curtain, because Bei Tanghua was blocking it, he could only vaguely see a graceful figure, but he didn't see her face. He didn't know why, but he was always attracted to that inconspicuous carriage. Only when the Northern Yan envoy group left and disappeared did Shangguan Yi withdraw his thoughts. When King Chen left, there was no need for Shangguan Yi to personally send him off. Because of what happened to King Chen that day, he was a little unhappy. As a matter of fact, he was somewhat regretting his decision. He should not have been so impulsive as to send her out. However, he was the emperor of the Nanshu nation, the son of heaven. He could not go back on his words in front of the envoys of the various nations. No matter how regretful he felt, he couldn't ask for her back. That would make Nanshu nation lose all face. On the day King Chen left, Shangguan Jing rode a horse and secretly followed him for a while. Looking at the gradually departing carriages, he had no choice but to return. Standing at the city gate, he felt somewhat lost. After Tang Jiao knew about this, she mocked the other party with System 222 and continued her arrogant and willful life. Her elder sister had said that all she needed to do now was to work hard. Fupin Chinese Pinnacle. Chapter 1192. She would not be the heavens or the earth, but the two brothers. She would personally crush the fairy in their dreams and show them what true love was. When Tang Jiao thought of their reactions in the future, her heart was incomparably carefree. Shangguan Yi and Shangguan Jing had always felt somewhat uncomfortable in their hearts. Especially when they did not deliberately erase some traces of that person. In order to prevent himself from thinking too much, Shangguan Jing could only double the treatment of Tang Jiao. No matter what excessive request Tang Jiao made, he would do it without complaint. Shengguan Yi was busy with court affairs all day and rarely had the free time to think about other things. Occasionally, when he ate some similar snacks, he would always think of that incomparably exquisite, delicious and sweet snack. When he fell asleep at night, lying on that herbal pillow, her appearance could not be removed from his mind. Occasionally, when he was feeling frustrated, he would go to the harem and ask which concubine knew how to play the zither. In order to curry favor with the emperor, how could the concubines not know how to play the zither? However, after listening to the zither music of all the concubines in the harem, none of them satisfied him. The zither music of these concubines was uncomfortable to listen to, and the more he listened, the more irritated he became. Only at night, lying on the herbal pillow, did his mood become much more relaxed. Until news came that King Qin was attacked by bandits. The beauty that the bandits took away from Nanshu fell down the cliff with the carriage because the horse was frightened. It was unknown whether she was alive or dead. How could it be? Shengguan found out about this when he was in court. It was an official who came up with the idea and felt that this matter was very serious. Fortunately, nothing happened to King Qin. If there was an accident, it would definitely cause a dispute between the two countries. The official's intention was to ask Shengguan Yi to send troops to exterminate the bandits and give an attitude. When Minister Tang Yanxin heard this news, he did not dare to accept the truth and directly fainted. "Your Majesty, the bandits are arrogant. For the sake of the friendship between the two countries, we must send troops to exterminate them. Otherwise, Qin country will laugh at our Nanshu country for not being able to deal with mere bandits." Shengguan Yi recovered from his daze. "Have you found the person?" The ministers looked at each other and quickly realized who Shengguan Yi was referring to. A complicated look flashed across their eyes. Actually, they still had some complaints about this matter. No matter what, imperial concubine Jiao was still the daughter of the minister. No matter how dissatisfied the emperor was with imperial concubine Jiao, he shouldn't give her away in exchange for treasures. Now that they had encountered bandits, imperial concubine Jiao had fallen off the cliff with the carriage. How could a weak woman like her still be alive after falling off the cliff? Even if they found it, it would probably be a cold corpse. "I haven't found it yet." "Then send someone to look for him." Shengguan Yi roared, his palms trembling. Even he himself did not realize that a kind of fear had appeared in his heart. At this moment, he felt a little regretful. He regretted giving her away. His mind was filled with the thought of her falling off the cliff and not knowing whether she was dead or alive. "Princess, do you like this place?" The Tang Jiao sat on the Fergana horse, led by Shengguan Jing, and walked by the lake to enjoy the beautiful autumn scenery. Seeing her sweet smile, he stared at her face and asked infatuatedly, as if he couldn't wait to present all the good things to her. "I like it, but this concubine heard that Jiangnan is the most beautiful place." The Tang Jiao said, "This concubine has yearned for Jiangnan since young. It's a pity that I don't have the chance to go." Shengguan Jing hurriedly said, "There is. After a while, this prince will take you to Jiangnan." "How about it? Why does it have to be after a while?" The Tang Jiao asked with a confused expression. "Can't it be within the next few days?" The Peak. Chapter 1193. Shengguan Jing's face flashed with embarrassment, but when he saw the expectant look on the Tang Jiao's face, he said, "Then I'll ask for leave from my imperial brother, and I'll take you to Jiangnan in 2 days. How about it? Your Highness, you're such a good person. You're so good to me." The Tang Jiao wasn't stingy with her praise. Shengguan Jing's original embarrassment disappeared in an instant. Your Highness, it's not good, it's not good." The steward ran over from behind, panting, which made Shengguan Jing unhappy. "Why are you shouting? What if the horse is frightened? What if the princess is frightened? Hearing Shang Wanjing's words, the steward's eyes were filled with sorrow. Tears flashed in his eyes. Regardless of Shang Wanjing's impatience, he whispered in Shang Wanjing's ear, "Your Highness, I just received news that King Qin encountered bandits on his way back. What does this have to do with me?" One and one slash I. Seeing Shang Wanjing's indifference, the steward sighed and said in a trembling voice, "Concubine Zhao's carriage rushed down the cliff because the horse was frightened. Now it's unknown whether she's alive or dead. I heard that the cliff is very high, and you can't see the bottom. Looking down, you can only see rolling fog. Many people think that she's dead." "What did you say?" Shang Wanjing asked in disbelief. He grabbed the steward's collar and almost lifted him up. "Say it again, I didn't hear it clearly." "King Chen was attacked by bandits. Concubine Zhao's carriage rushed down the cliff because the horse was frightened. Now she..." Before the steward could finish, Shang Wanjing pushed him away and laughed, "Don't lie to me. How can there be such a coincidence? It's true. His Majesty has sent troops to eliminate the bandits. At the same time, he sent people to find Concubine Zhao." The steward looked at Shang Wanjing, who didn't dare to believe it. Seeing that he didn't dare to believe it, the steward sighed in his heart, "Wang Ye, this is true, get out. Your Highness, get out." The steward had no choice but to leave. He looked back at Shang Wanjing, who was still in a daze, and didn't know what to say. He glanced at the Tang Jiao, who was happily riding a horse in the distance, and finally left in a sorry state. When the Tang Jiao heard the news, she was also stunned. She asked the system in a trembling voice, 3 twos. "Will Big Sister be okay?" "Don't worry, host. I think there's definitely something fishy going on. Have you forgotten? She said she would come back. I guess that she did this to give the Shangwan brothers a heavy dose of medicine. It was impossible for her to go back with Lord Qin. A living person who has become the woman of another monarch cannot be compared to a dead person." System 222 explained seriously. What it didn't say was that it was so sure because it had received an email. That's right, it was an email. It wasn't from the headquarters, but an unfamiliar ID. He was sure that the guy who sent the email was also a system, and one that was more advanced than him. He could not track the other party's whereabouts. The content of the email was that Tang Guo was fine and asked him to comfort Tang Jiao. However, he was not allowed to tell Tang Jiao about the other party's existence. He guessed that the system was with Tang Guo. The other party was too mysterious and too strange. System 222 didn't want to tell Tang Jiao about this. He had already sent an email to the headquarters to explain the situation. However, to his horror, this email received a reply not long after. It was not from the headquarters, but from the mysterious system. System 222 was very confused now. He didn't know what the other party's purpose was. However, the only thing he was sure of was that the other party didn't seem to be here to sabotage his mission. Fukbin Chinese Vertex. Chapter 1194. Knowing that Tang Guo would be fine, the Tang Jiao was relieved. Seeing that Shang Wanjing was still in a daze, she rode the horse over and shouted, "Your Highness." It was not easy for the emperor to send a concubine away. The officials did not want to make a fuss about it. Shang Wanjing deliberately hid it. Everyone in the mansion was his people. The butler did not like the Tang Jiao, so he would not say anything about it. Therefore, on the surface, the Tang Jiao should not know that Tang Guo was sent away. "Your Highness, we just said that we were going to Jiangnan." The Tang Jiao continued to add fuel to the fire. "By the way, what did the butler say to you?" The butler said to Shang Wanjing in a low voice. The Tang Jiao was far away, so it was thanks to the system that she could hear it. Now, she could only pretend that she did not hear it. Shangguan Jing said subconsciously, her carriage fell. In an instant, he felt that something was wrong, so he quickly said, I'll send you back first. Regardless of whether the Tang Jiao was willing or not, he directly got on the horse and galloped to Prince Jing's mansion. The Tang Jiao was very uncomfortable. She cursed Shangguan Jing in her heart before she felt better. Now you regret it. What were you doing earlier? When they arrived at Prince Jing's mansion, Shangguan Jing brought the Tang Jiao down and sent her back to her room. He turned to leave, but the Tang Jiao quickly stopped him. Your Highness, where are you going? I have something important to do. Your Highness, don't leave the mansion for a while. Your Highness, you promised that you would take me to Jiangnan in 2 days. The Tang Jiao pretended to be coquettish, but in fact, she was a little disgusted by the coquettish voice. Your Highness, you promised me. We'll go later, Shangguan Jing said coldly. Seeing the Tang Jiao's unhappy look, he was stunned. A sentence suddenly popped up in his mind. Was this the woman he was thinking about? Why did he feel that she was not as beautiful as he imagined? Without thinking too much, Shangguan Jing turned around and left, ignoring the Tang Jiao. Seeing him leave, Tang Jiao heaved a sigh of relief. She closed the door and lay down on the bed. Oh my God, it's so tiring to play such a flirtatious slut. Shangguan Jing led his men and rushed to the place where the past happened. After traveling through the night, it took them 3 days to reach the place where the carriage had rushed down. He looked down at the thick white fog rising from the cliff, and his heart sank. Have they found him? Not yet, Your Highness. All of you are dismissed. Follow me to look for him. Not long after, Shangguan Yi also arrived with his men. Unlike Shangguan Jing, he had secretly brought people here. He looked at the rolling white fog and pondered for a moment before going down to look for her. Halfway through, the two of them met and looked at each other. Shangguan Yi sneered, Luminescent Prince, why are you here? Why can't I be here? Shangguan Yi said, I remember that she has nothing to do with Your Highness. Why are you here? The princess consort couldn't let it go and asked me to come. Good excuse. You're still looking for excuses at this time. Shangguan Yi mocked, Luminescent Prince, if she dies, it'll be your fault. Imperial brother, you can't get away with it either. If you hadn't agreed to give her away, she wouldn't have gotten into trouble. Luminescent Prince, if you hadn't exchanged her with the Imperial Palace, why would I have given her away? You're the reason. Shangguan Jing sneered, Imperial brother, I'm afraid you've forgotten who gave her to me as my princess consort. The person I like is Jiao Er. You also liked Jiao Er and took her as your princess consort. That's why you gave her to me. In the end, Imperial brother, don't shirk your responsibility. The Summit. Chapter 1195. Shangguan Yi's face darkened. He glanced at the tall grass and clenched his fists. Let's look for her. We don't know if she's still alive. Shangguan Yi's voice trembled as he said this. If she's still alive, we'll bring her back to the palace. You don't want her, but we do. From now on, she'll be our consort Jiao. Shangguan Jing's heart tightened at Shangguan Yi's words. In the end, he didn't say anything about bringing her back to the Luminescent King's estate. After this incident, if she was still alive, she'd definitely be able to live peacefully in the palace. Presumably, his imperial brother wouldn't vent his anger on her. At the bottom of the cliff, the thick fog covered a wide area. Wild beasts roamed about as well. It wasn't easy for one person to find a carriage. But after a tireless search, someone finally came to report that they'd found the whereabouts of the carriage. The two didn't sleep for several days. Without resting for even a moment, they followed. When they saw the smashed carriage, their hearts sank. Especially when they saw the dried and blackened bloodstains around it, they felt a chill in their hearts. "How is it? Did you find her?" Shangguan Yi subconsciously glanced at the smashed carriage. Beside the carriage was the skeleton of a horse. The flesh on it had already been gnawed clean by wild beasts. He asked his subordinates around him in a trembling voice. He didn't go forward to take a look. "Master, after this subordinate's investigation, Consort Zhao's corpse might have been eaten by wild beasts. Other than the horse's blood, there's also a pool of human blood and some blood-stained rags. As for whether these are the clothes Consort Zhao wore that day, we only need to ask the people of the Qin state to find out." Shangguan Jing's face instantly paled. Shangguan Yi wasn't any better. He only felt that the smashed carriage was very glaring to the eyes. In particular, he didn't want to look at the pool of human blood. He didn't dare to touch the rags that his subordinates brought over. How can this be? Wasn't this horse bitten by wild beasts? Only her skeleton is left. Concubine Zhao is a human. Perhaps she didn't pass out when she fell, but walked away on her own. Shangguan Jing hurriedly said. He rushed to the place where the carriage had fallen and searched for it. Holding a few pieces of bloody cloth, he said, "These pieces of cloth can't prove anything. Perhaps she accidentally tore them when she fell down. It's impossible for her not to be injured after falling down. She must have cut off her sleeves and skirt to escape." In order to prove his conjecture, Shangguan Jing was still looking for evidence in the pile of broken carriages. "Continue searching," Shangguan Yi said. He looked at Shangguan Jing, who was digging in the ruins with both hands, and for the first time, he did not mock him. At this moment, he was surprised to see Shangguan Jing stop moving. "She's really dead." Shangguan Jing's mournful voice drifted over, causing Shangguan Yi's heart to clench. He saw that Shangguan Jing was holding a few broken pieces of jade in his hands. He heard Shangguan Jing say, "These are the broken pieces of jade from the bracelet. This bracelet is my gift to her. When she changed her clothes that day, the servant forgot to take the bracelet away. She had always worn this bracelet and had never taken it off." Shangguan Yi often went to listen to her play the zither, so he naturally saw the bracelet she was wearing. Carefully examining it, the broken jade really did belong to the bracelet. He took 2 steps back, a dazed look on his face. Was she really dead? "Continue searching. You'll find traces of her existence," Fu Pinzhong said. The Peak. Chapter 1196. Shangguan Jing's face was ashen as he said, "Imperial brother, there's no need to deceive yourself. The bracelet has been shattered and the horse has been eaten by wild beasts. She was a weak woman. How could she be stronger than a horse? How could she have survived the fall?" Shangguan Yi's expression was ugly. His naive thoughts had been shattered by the truth, leaving him speechless. "Let's look for her again." Finally, Shangguan Yi said in a low voice, "We have to find her remains, right?" There was an indescribable pain in his heart. "If she can survive, we will definitely treat her well. She has always been a good person." Shangguan Jing carefully put away the broken jade, ignoring his palm that was cut by the broken jade. He staggered to his feet. "We should find her remains. We can't just leave her body exposed in the wilderness." He was wrong. Even if he didn't like her, he shouldn't have treated her like this. If he could do it all over again, he would have promised his imperial brother to keep her at the banquet. That way, she wouldn't have died from the attack of the bandits. Her horse wouldn't have been frightened and fallen off the cliff. Perhaps, he shouldn't have swapped her into the palace even earlier. He had grown up with his imperial brother. How could he not know his temperament? He had always been cold and heartless to those he disliked and disliked. He wanted to find her remains and bring her back to the luminescent prince's estate to be buried in the luminescent princess's name. This was what he owed her. His imperial brother was right about one thing. She had always been a good person. The only bad thing about her was that they didn't like her. In the end, she passed away. Shangguan Yi also went to look for her remains. No matter whether she is alive or dead, we will bring her back to the palace. His eyes were a little red. His mind kept replaying the scenes of their time together. The slow and pleasant sound of the zither seemed to be ringing in his ears. The sweet and soft snacks that melted in his mouth seemed to have been eaten yesterday. The medicine pillow that could make him sleep peacefully had accompanied him for countless days and nights. He regretted it now. He shouldn't have impulsively given her away. She was a good person. There was nothing bad about her. If she was still alive, he would definitely give her endless honor and favor. He would give her everything she deserved. The two of them kept searching for Tang Guo's whereabouts. They searched for many days but did not find anyone. They only found some blood-stained clothes on the way. Half a month later, they managed to piece together the dress. When they found someone from the Qin state and asked about it, they found out that it was the dress she had worn that day. They could no longer deceive themselves and others by saying that she was still alive. There was not a trace of a smile on their faces as they numbly mounted their horses and returned to the imperial city with her bloody clothes. After Shangguan Yi returned to the palace, he issued a decree to confer Consort Zhao the title of noble consort and buried her as a noble consort. The original charming spirit hall had been changed to the imperial concubine pavilion. No one was allowed to enter or leave. Guards were arranged to clean the place regularly. When Shangguan Jing returned to his mansion, he set up a memorial tablet for Tang Guo. The identity on the tablet was Consort Jing. The memorial tablet was placed in a cubicle in his study, where he worshipped it day and night. Next to it was the only portrait he had ever painted of her. Her features were picturesque, like a fairy who was deep in thought. Her movements and stillness were both beautiful. She was different from Tang Jiao. Her beauty was also different. Her goodness was intoxicating. By the time they discovered it, it was already too late. Tang Jiao knew that Shangguan Yi had set up a memorial tablet for Tang Guo. After sneering in her heart, she came to his study to find him. She still remembered that he had taken her to Jiangnan to play. Chapter 1197. Just like before, she pushed the door open and entered. Shangguan Jing reprimanded her coldly, "Why did you come in?" Seeing the change in Shangguan Jing's temperament, Tang Jiao felt wronged. She walked up to him and tugged at his sleeve. "Your Highness, didn't you say that you were going to take me to Jiangnan? She's dead. Why do you still want to go to Jiangnan?" Shangguan Jing was so angry that he almost lost his voice. It was fine that Tang Jiao didn't know about it before. But now that she knew about it, why was she still so indifferent? She shouldn't be sad for her sister. Why did she still want to go to Jiangnan? Tang Jiao pursed her lips. "Your Highness, my sister had an accident. I'm also very sad. I just wanted to go to Jiangnan to relax when I saw that Your Highness was sad. Your Highness, I feel that there's something wrong with you. Even if the noble consort is my sister, you shouldn't act like this. You're acting like she's the one in your heart." 1 ton and 1 t/I. At this time, Tang Jiao finally found that Shangguan Jing didn't have time to cover the memorial tablet. The words, "Consort Jing," were written on it. She was so scared that she hurriedly stepped back. "Your Highness, can you tell me what's going on? Why is this Consort Jing's memorial tablet? So the person in your heart is really your sister and not a concubine, right?" Tang Jiao's face was extremely pale. Before Shangguan Jing could react, she pushed the door open and ran out. So you don't like me at all? You treat me well because of my sister. Then why do I still stay in the Jing Prince's mansion? Tang Jiao said as she ran out of the mansion. She didn't forget to communicate with System 222, 32s. Is Shangguan Yi really in the restaurant? Yes, he knows that the chef of the restaurant was taught by Tang Gua. He specially came to eat the dishes, hoping to recall the familiar taste. Tang Jiao hurriedly used her hands to make herself look a little embarrassed and ran towards Shangguan Yi. Not long after, Shangguan Yi saw her upstairs and came down to see her. Hearing her say that Shangguan Jing bullied her, he took her back to the palace without a word. When they were in the palace, Tang Jiao would occasionally tell Shangguan Yi that she seemed to be very familiar with some places in the palace. This made Shangguan Yi's heart just a moment ago. He thought that Tang Jiao appeared to help him heal. He felt that one day, Tang Jiao would definitely remember everything. He deliberately forgot about the other person. The palace he gave Tang Jiao was not the imperial concubine's mansion that had been sealed, but another palace. Soon, Shangguan Jing came to see Tang Jiao. Because of Tang Jiao, the two brothers often quarreled with each other. Sometimes, they even fought. Tang Jiao clenched her handkerchief and tried to mediate the fight, but in reality, she was adding fuel to the fire, making the two of them fight even more fiercely. When the two of them were seriously injured and looked vexed, she cried beside them. She was so pitiful, saying that it was all her fault. Yun Yun. System 222 was amazed by Tang Jiao's performance. It didn't know that the new host it took over had grown to such an extent. Tang Jiao quarreled with them during the day, so they didn't have time to think about Tang Gua. But when it was late at night, their minds were filled with Tang Gua. Shangguan Yi would sit in the imperial concubine's mansion late at night and talk to himself. Tang Jiao has a jumpy personality. When she quarrels, she is like a child. She always makes people angry. She is not as virtuous as you. If only you were here. She is your sister. I will take good care of her and won't let Prince Jing bully her. Fupin Chinese Vertex. Chapter 1198. Shangguan Jing looked at the portrait of Tang Gua and said, I miss the days when you were in the Jing Prince's residence. Jiao is too arrogant, but don't worry, I will protect her and won't let my brother bully her. Every time something happened because of the Tang Jiao, late at night, they would recall the woman who had been very comfortable with them. Shangguan Jing, if she was around, the Jing Prince's residence would definitely be in good order, and everything would be very harmonious. Not to mention the various shops under her name, there would definitely be an endless stream of customers coming and going. Everything he wore, what he stepped on, and what he used on a daily basis, was prepared by her. Now, he was still wearing the clothes that she had prepared for him. He had thought of changing into some new clothes and shoes, but he always felt that they were not as comfortable as the ones she made. No one would have the delicate thought to embroider a small, Jing, character into a unique totem. Shangguan Yi, if she was still around, he would definitely go to her place to listen to a few songs every day after court to get rid of the fatigue of the day. Some of the delicious snacks she made could make up for half a day's hunger. The herbal pillow she made was his favorite. That day, he had asked the palace servants to take out the box that contained the herbal medicine. There were not many left in it. He had asked the imperial physicians to come over and reluctantly gave one of the herbal medicine packets to them for research. Unfortunately, none of them could make herbal medicine packets that had the same magical effect as her. In the end, he had chosen the most similar one to use. As for the remaining packets that she made, he had kept them. However, he still used that pillow every day, but he was afraid that it would be damaged, so he ordered the palace servants to sew a layer of soft cloth on the outside. However, it was still different. Tang Jiao could feel the changes in the two of them, and she worked even harder. She knew that the two of them would not do anything to her for the sake of her sister, so she worked hard every day. The two of them were physically and mentally exhausted, and even late at night, they wondered how they had fallen for her. Tang Jiao almost laughed out loud when she heard their sighs from System 222. It had only been a little more than a year, and they couldn't take it anymore. We still have a long way to go. Some time ago, she had already received a letter from her sister. Knowing that the other party was safe, she didn't have to worry so much. She just needed to torment those two people. She would wait until they were impatient and then she would leave. Tang Guo came to the northern Yan kingdom and lived a very comfortable life. Perhaps it was the after-effects of the previous world. Not long after she arrived in northern Yan, she bought many shops. With Bei Tanghua's help, he recruited many workers and opened all kinds of shops. In less than 2 years, she had opened shops all over the northern Yan kingdom. Your Majesty, may I say something? After witnessing what Tang Guo had done in northern Yan, Prime Minister Yun Mujuan was extremely wary of this woman who was especially good at earning money. That was why he was standing guard at the palace gates today. When it was time, His Majesty, who chased beauties all day long and did not do any proper work, would definitely come back from outside leisurely and with a face full of smiles. Sure enough, His Majesty still carried a box of food in his hand this time. Yun Mujuan swallowed his saliva. Looking at His Majesty's treasured appearance, there was no need to guess that it must be the supper that the woman had prepared for His Majesty. His Majesty would only carry the food that she had prepared personally, and would never let others do it. Thinking of that smell, it was amazing. Yun Mujuan hurriedly went up, his eyes never leaving the food box for a moment. Your Majesty, let me help you carry it. Fupin Chinese Vertex. Chapter 1199. I'll take it myself. Prime Minister, you've had a hard day and should return to your residence to rest. Bei Tanghuo hurriedly switched the food box to his other hand so that the sly fox wouldn't snatch it away. Speak, it's already so late and you're still waiting for me. What's the matter? Did you manage to poach another talent? The corners of Yun Mujuan's mouth twitched. Everyone said that His Majesty was a true gentleman, but only he knew how treacherous this man was. He was always thinking of poaching talents from other countries to work for him. Your Majesty, Miss Tang's shops are all over northern Yan. Yun Mujuan said, don't you think it's inappropriate? Bei Tanghua asked, what's inappropriate? I think it's very appropriate. That's her only hobby. Yun Mujuan, don't worry so much. Just help me manage the affairs of the imperial court. His words were no different from an incapable ruler. Unfortunately, His Majesty was a wise ruler. Yun Mujuan was speechless. If this continues, Miss Tang will control the economic lifeline of northern Yan. Don't you think it's very dangerous, Your Majesty? What danger? It's better for her to be in control than someone else. If she's in control, you can rest assured. Yun Mujuan smiled bitterly. What kind of vixen could bewitch His Majesty, who grew up with him, to this extent? Your Majesty, she's from Nanshu. Bei Tanghuo was displeased. You don't like her? No, that's not what I meant, Yun Mujuan hurriedly said. He didn't want his salary to be deducted at all. His salary had already been deducted for more than 20 years. If it continued, he wouldn't be able to receive any salary for the rest of his life. That's not what I meant. Bei Tanghuo raised an eyebrow. Then what do you mean? What I mean is, Yun Mujuan gritted his teeth when he saw Bei Tanghuo's nonchalance. Your Majesty, when are you going to bring her into the palace and confer her the title of Empress? It's been almost 2 years, Your Majesty. Now all the civil and military officials in the court are worried about your marriage. I heard that Miss Tang is planning to open a shop in another country. If she is seduced by a pretty boy, where will you go to cry? You can open a shop, but you have to become empress first. Bei Tanghua, he wanted to, too. But in her eyes, there seemed to be only silver. Seeing how happy she was as she counted the silvers, how could he spoil her mood? Your Majesty, don't think about eating all day long. Go and find out what Miss Tang wants to do. What if she goes to another place and never comes back? Lord Yunmujuan's heart was bitter. His Majesty had always liked this girl since he was young. If she left, the other party would probably be single for the rest of his life. This girl was indeed a good one. She was smart, generous, and had a mind for making money. Ever since she came, their northern Yan's economy had grown by an unknown amount. Because of her, he even went to other countries to bring in a lot of seeds. It was as if nothing could stop her. Such a woman, who was favored by His Majesty, of course had to be the Empress. Anyway, he only had one intention. If she wanted to open a shop in other countries, she would have to be crowned as the Empress first. Your Majesty, do you really want to spend the rest of your life like this? Bei Tanghua looked a little embarrassed and said in a low voice, "It's already not easy for me to coax her to come to Northern Yan. Now, she only likes to count silvers. If I mention this rashly, I'm afraid I'll scare her away. Your Majesty, you can take it slow and subtly trick her into entering the palace. You can confer the title of Empress first." Lord Yunmujuan tempted. Fupin Chinese the Apex. Chapter 1200. Bei Tanghua was silent for a moment. "Then I'll give it a try." Yes, you should try. No matter what, he had to coax her first. Bei Tanghua thought about it and decided that it would be a good idea to coax her into the palace and make her his empress. His face was full of smiles at the thought of it. Seeing that he was in a good mood, Yunmujuan hurriedly said, "Your Majesty, this subject hasn't eaten yet." Bei Tanghua immediately became alert and hid the food box behind him. Seeing how pitiful and skinny the other party was, he opened the box and took out a plate of pastries. "There's only one plate." "Thank you, Your Majesty." "One plate is enough." Yunmujuan thought that there wasn't even a single piece. Bei Tanghua coughed lightly. "Guogua is so busy. Don't think about it all the time if she can find the time to make some pastries for me. She had already made them today. Otherwise, I wouldn't bear to see her so tired." Yes. She's Your Majesty's sweetheart. She shouldn't do such menial work. If Miss Tang didn't care about Your Majesty, she wouldn't cook for you. Yunmujuan stuffed the pastries into his mouth as he flattered. Although his words were greasy, Bei Tanghua liked it. Hearing Yunmujuan say that Tanghua cared about him, he was in a good mood. "All right, you can go back. I'll think about how to coax her into the palace and make her my empress." Bei Tanghua held the food box and fell into deep thought. She didn't lack money or power. She didn't seem to lack anything. No, she lacked someone to dote on her. So, what kind of conditions should he list to move her and make her his empress? The next day, after Bei Tanghua left court, he threw a bunch of trivial matters to Yunmujuan. Seeing Yunmujuan's bitter expression, he said, "Prime Minister, I'll have to work hard to bring the empress into the palace as soon as possible. Your Majesty, please go. Your subject is here." Lord Cloud Dusk had no choice but to swallow his grievances. Before Bei Tanghua left the palace, he first went to the imperial garden and cut the most beautiful flowers. Then, he quickly rushed to the residence where Tanghua lived. Everyone in the residence recognized him and knew his identity. When they saw him, they immediately said, "Young master, Miss is in the study." "Got it. I'll go by myself." Bei Tanghua brought the most beautiful flowers to the door of the study. He had intended to wait for a while, but he didn't expect her to hear it. Is it Bei Tang? It's me. After more than a year, the way they addressed each other was finally different. He could call him Guogua, so she called him Bei Tang. If he worked a little harder, wouldn't she have to call him husband? Bei Tanghua pushed the door open and entered with a smile. Tanghua looked up and saw him come in with a bouquet of beautiful flowers. She asked, "Did you pick them in the imperial garden?" "Guogua, you're really the most intelligent woman." Bei Tanghua handed the bouquet of flowers to Tanghua, and she gladly accepted it. Beautiful. Just the word beautiful made Bei Tanghua happy. He glanced at the map on the table and asked, "Isn't this the map of Northern Yin?" This is the map of other countries." Tanghua replied. Bei Tanghua's heart sank. "Are you leaving?" Tanghua could hear the grievance in his voice. He was clearly a big man. In the imperial court, when facing other people, he always had an imposing aura. Why did he seem like an abandoned puppy in front of her? It was as if his next sentence would say, "If you're leaving, take me with you, okay?" System, this person has no bottom line. Fupin Chinese Vertex. Chapter 1201. Where are you going? Which country have you taken a fancy to? Bei Tanghua continued to ask, "What's not good about Northern Yin?" Tanghua pursed her lips into a smile. "Bei Tang, what are you thinking about?" "I'm thinking that you're leaving." Bei Tanghua said pitifully, "You're leaving Northern Yin." Tanghua smiled and said, "I have my eyes on many countries, because these countries have products that Northern Yin does not have. Northern Yin is already filled with my shops, so it's time to move on to other countries. Also, Northern Yin is pretty good, everything is good." She glanced at Bei Tanghua and said, "Northern Yin also has a very good person, so I won't leave." Bei Tanghua, who was originally somewhat depressed, immediately stood up straight. "Guogua, what do you think of me?" "I just said, you're very good." "Other than good?" "Very good." System, speechless. Bei Tanghua took a step forward. "Guogua, have you forgotten the past? How do you plan to spend the rest of your life? If possible, can you consider me, Bei Tanghua? Although I am the emperor of Northern Yin, I do not have a single woman in my harem, nor have I ever liked anyone before, male or female. I want you to be my empress, the entire harem is yours, the entire Northern Yin is yours, and I am also yours." He felt that it was better to directly express his feelings, rather than coaxing her into entering the palace. He really could not bear to lie to her, nor did he want to force her. He only wanted to show his heart to her, and let her see it with her own eyes. "If you are willing, I am willing to use the country as a betrothal gift, and marry you as my wife. In this life, I will only have you." Tanghua stared at him. "I don't like being lied to, and I can't bear being betrayed. Bei Tang, have you thought it through? From the moment I saw you, I only had this thought in my heart. If I want to marry you, then I will marry you. If I can't marry you, then I will be alone for the rest of my life." Bei Tanghua said seriously. He had never been willing to lie to her, nor was he willing to scheme against her. Tanghua pursed her lips and smiled. "Say it again." "I, Bei Tanghua, am willing to use the country as a betrothal gift to marry Tanghua. You are the only one in my life. If I break my vow, if you break your oath, I'll teach you a lesson." Tanghua continued, "If I let you live in pain, I'll never forgive you for the rest of my life. I'll take revenge on you like crazy." System, fuck, she really is a paranoid crazy woman. When the host opened her mouth, he thought she would say, "All right, stop swearing, I believe you." He never thought that she would be so vicious. TSK, TSK, TSK. She was indeed his dog host. She held grudges and hardened her heart. Bei Tanghua was also stunned when he heard Tanghua's words. He wanted to say that he would be struck by lightning if he went against his oath. She actually said that she would never forgive him for the rest of her life if he went back on his word. She would even crazily take revenge on him. He didn't know why, but he felt a little happy. Did this mean that she really had him in her heart? Was that why she made such an oath? She was indeed not an ordinary woman. Her oath was so vicious that it pierced straight into his heart. It really gave him a fright. How could he break his oath, let her down, and betray her? She was someone he had coaxed with great difficulty. He couldn't wait to pamper her. Then, Guogua, when are we going to hold the coronation ceremony? You decide. Tanghua smiled and waved at him. Bei Tang, come and look at the map. Fupin Chinese Vertex. Chapter 1202. Bei Tanghua hurriedly went up and saw that there were many circled places on the map. He heard her say, "These few countries are relatively small and very backward. Previously, I sent people to survey their geology and there are good things inside. I plan to send people to enclose the mountains and excavate the things inside and transport them back to our northern Yan country." When he heard our northern Yan country, Bei Tanghua's heart was boiling. What is the most important thing for a country? Economy. I plan to secretly open shops in various countries and slowly control their economy. At the same time, I can also control their operations. Now that the few big countries each occupy a region, the surrounding small countries can be considered peaceful. But no one knows when war will break out. We have to make preparations early so that when war breaks out, we won't be in a mess. The ones who suffer will be the people below. Bei Tanghua somewhat understood. Guogua, you plan to open shops in other countries. It can't be because of me, right? Can't I? Tanghua looked at him with a smile. Bei Tanghua didn't know what to say. He took the opportunity to hold her hand and said with a hoarse voice, "I really didn't expect that. I even mistakenly thought that you were leaving. I already said that Northern Yan country is very good. Northern Yan country also has a very good person. Meeting you must have been a result of my cultivation in my previous life." The system deeply agreed. You must have cultivated it for who knows how many lifetimes. Remember the host's words and be especially obedient in every life. Otherwise, the host wouldn't be so good to you. So good that it made him a little jealous. He was indeed not the system that the host cherished the most. In this life, I must do more good deeds and strive to meet you in my next life. Not long after, the various countries received a piece of news. It was that old unmarried emperor of Northern Yan country who had finally been conferred the title of empress. It was said that the empress was a merchant. If this was in other countries, an emperor conferring a merchant woman as his empress would definitely be mocked. But this person was Bei Tanghua. They didn't mock him at all. They only sighed in their hearts that the emperor of Northern Yan country had finally found a woman he liked. Shangguan Yi and Shangguan Jing also received the news. The two of them were now in hot water every day. The Tang Jiao's temperament was becoming more and more arrogant. Those who knew the truth would think that they indulged and spoiled the Tang Jiao because they loved her deeply. Only they themselves knew that there was another person hidden in their hearts. Because of their guilt towards her, they had no choice but to treat the Tang Jiao well. In particular, their identical faces made them unable to say anything harsh to Tang Jiao. Only in the dead of the night would they wake up and recall the muddle-headedness of the day. Because of the arrogance of the Tang Jiao, several shops under the prince's mansion had closed down. If it weren't for the butler in the Wang mansion, things would have been even worse. Shangguan Yi was a little better, but every time because of the Tang Jiao, he would be at odds with Shangguan Jing. This made them think of the past, and they really became like fire and water. Time passed slowly and Tanggua became the empress of the northern Yan country. That year, the people were cheering. Especially when they knew that the woman who led them to riches was the empress, they really worshipped her like a bodhisattva. With Tanggua leading the economy of northern Yan country, she also sent people to other countries to open shops, collect products, and excavate the treasures underground. Unknowingly, northern Yan country became more and more powerful. There was no loss in the national treasury. Philippine Chinese Vertex. Chapter 1203. Every time Yunmujuan checked the state treasury, he was grinning from ear to ear. Although his salary had been deducted for more than 30 years, he was still very happy. Her Majesty the Empress is a good person. She knows that I don't have a salary and am very poor. She actually ordered people to send me rice, ready-made clothes, shoes and socks every month, as well as fresh vegetables every day. Yunmujuan closed the account book and beamed, "Your Majesty is wise to marry such a good woman as your Empress. The heavens bless my northern Yan." Time passed in the blink of an eye. It had been 10 years since the last exchange banquet. The exchange banquet was held once every 10 years. This year, it was northern Yan's turn. As early as a month ago, people from various countries had set off for northern Yan. The envoy from Nanshu was Shengguan Jing. He was purely annoyed by the Tang Jiao, but when he looked at her face, he couldn't bear to scold her. It just so happened that there was an exchange banquet, so he asked for an imperial edict to come. He had forgotten that at this time, the Tang Jiao's memory should be awake. Not long after Shengguan Jing left, she woke up and barged into the palace like a madwoman. Shengguan Yi knew it was her, but he couldn't bear to blame her. When the Tang Jiao threw herself into his arms with tears in her eyes, Shengguan Yi no longer felt like he had regained what he had lost. "Your Majesty, I finally remember. Your Majesty, do you want to take this concubine back to the palace? This concubine still wants to live in Jiaoling Palace." Shengguan Yi was thinking about how to arrange the Tang Jiao when he heard about Jiaoling Palace. He immediately remembered the past and refused without thinking, "You can't live in that place." "Why?" "In short, you can't live there." "Then where will this concubine live?" Shengguan Yi didn't want to take the Tang Jiao back to the palace anymore. "You are now Jing Wang's princess consort. This is something the whole world knows. We can't take you back to the palace." As for the truth, only he knew. In the end, the Tang Jiao left in tears. Shengguan Yi was still worried and could only send someone to follow her. He felt very helpless in his heart. If he had known that this day would come, he would have treated her well. Unfortunately, there was no medicine for regret in this world. Some people would only know how good they were after losing them. The exchange banquet began, and the ambassadors and rulers of the various nations entered the venue. Then, the Northern Yan Emperor and Empress appeared hand in hand. When they saw Tanggua's extremely beautiful face, they all felt that it was very familiar when they witnessed the envoy who gifted the beauty 10 years ago. They had never forgotten that face from that day. Among them, Shengguan Jing was the most shocked. If not for his efforts to restrain himself, he would have stood up and shouted. The other person who was shocked was Country King Qin. Compared to 10 years ago, he was much greasier. While he was exclaiming in admiration, he felt Bei Tanghua's cold gaze and hurriedly looked away. He cursed in his heart. Motherfucker, so the Northern Yan envoy who dragged him to drink was actually the Northern Yan Emperor. He was no fool. He immediately guessed what had happened back then. He was wondering why the emissary of the Northern Yan Kingdom would try to worm his way into being friends with him. It turned out that the emissary had taken a fancy to that beauty. That group of bandits was probably also arranged by the other party, right? Otherwise, how could there be such a coincidence? But so what if he knew the truth? He couldn't win against the Northern Yen Kingdom. He couldn't win against them in the past, and he couldn't win against them now. He could only sit here obediently and drink. He glanced at Shangguan Jing, who was sitting not far away. There were some things that he was well aware of, but there was no need to say it out. Fupin Chinese Vertex. Chapter 1204. But it was still okay to sit aside and watch the show. Shangguan Jing was very sure that the Empress of Northern Yen was Tang Guo. The person they all thought was dead. She clearly saw him, but there was only unfamiliarity in her eyes, as if she didn't know him. Shangguan Jing was absent-minded throughout the banquet. When the banquet ended, he left the palace in a daze. After leaving the palace, he immediately sent people to investigate the matter. Who was the Empress of Northern Yen? Was it her? The last news he got was that the Empress of Northern Yen was indeed not from Northern Yen, and it matched the date of her death. Through various details, Shangguan Jing was very sure that the Empress of Northern Yen was really Tang Guo. He cried tears of joy on the spot, but quickly remembered that she was now the Empress of Northern Yen, and the way she looked at him was still very unfamiliar, and he felt very uneasy. He heard that the Empress was extremely wealthy in Northern Yen, and had opened shops everywhere that belonged to her. 1 ton and 1 tea/ia. The Empress would often leave the palace, and Shangguan Jing had been waiting. On the day that Tang Guo left the palace, he secretly went forward to meet her, wanting to ask her how she had been all these years, what had happened back then, and since she was still alive, why didn't she go back? You are the envoy of Nanshu, Jing Wangye, right? I saw you at the banquet that night. Tang Guo said in a distant and polite tone. All of Shangguan Jing's enthusiasm seemed to have been splashed with a basin of cold water. Jing Wangye, is there anything important that you want to talk to me about? Nanshu is rich in resources. If it's about trading, you can directly communicate with His Majesty. Shangguan Jing subconsciously said, don't you remember me? Remember you? Tang Guo raised her eyebrows and smiled faintly. I have never met Wang Ye, how can I remember you? Shangguan Jing carefully identified, and didn't see any flicker in her eyes, nor any familiarity. It could be seen that she really didn't remember him. You were originally called Tang Guo. Tang Guo laughed. I was originally called Tang Guo, Wang Ye, you don't need to tell me my name. So you are from Nanshu Nation. Shangguan Jing was indignant. You should be the eldest daughter of a minister in Nanshu Nation. You. He thought of many things that he had done to her in the past and was momentarily at a loss for words. Luminescent King, I am now the Empress of the Northern Yen country. I have indeed lost many of my memories. From the moment I was born, the person who accompanied me was my husband, the Emperor of the Northern Yen country, Bei Tanghua. I'm living a good life now. As for the past, I'm not interested in learning about it. Shangguan Jing was unwilling to accept it and blurted out, then don't you care about your family? Because of your death, the minister has been sad for half a month. His health is not as good as before. Have you ever thought of going back to see him? Also, your sister. Prince Jing, do you have anything else to tell me other than this? You should have been deceived by Bei Tanghua. He deceived you into becoming the empress. He definitely didn't tell you about the past. Shangguan Jing said very anxiously. Tanghua pursed her lips into a smile. He has never lied to me. I can tell at a glance who is lying to me. Also, he told me everything you said just now. Moreover, it's more than what you said. For example, my identity was indeed the eldest daughter of a minister, but because of your selfishness, my memory was changed and I became my sister, and I was sent to the palace. The Emperor of Nanshu Nation, because he saw that I was not the real Tang Jiao, he mocked me. Fupin Chinese Vertex. Chapter 1205. Even at the exchange banquet 10 years ago, you directly used me to exchange for a lot of treasures. You didn't tell me all these, right? You. Shangguan Jing's face instantly paled, and he was so shocked that he took a few steps back. Are you curious why he told me everything? Because he is the person who cares about me the most in this world. Even if I have forgotten my past memories, he still told me the truth and never hid anything from me. Jing Wangye, is this the truth? Shangguan Jing wanted to say that it wasn't true. But it was true, it was something they really did. As long as you come back, I will treat you well, and we can start over. But I don't remember you. I don't remember the past grudges. Tang Guo said lightly. And, from your words, you admit to doing those things. Since that's the case, why should I give up being Northern Yan's empress, ignore the person who loves me, and go back with someone like you who hurt me? Just because you said you can treat me well, and we can start over, I have to give up everything and go back with you? Jing Wangye, who do you think you are? Even if you are gold, silver, and treasures, you fell into a cesspool. You didn't even wipe yourself clean, and you dare to say these words. Aren't you taking things for granted? Shangguan Jing wanted to say something, but Tang Guo said to the people here, I'm not in a good mood, I won't look at the shops. Let's go back to the palace. Yes, Your Highness. System, is the host acting pretentious? You're not allowed to leave. You have to go back to Nanshu with me. That's where you belong. Shangguan Jing shouted, and went up to grab Tang Guo's wrist. He didn't expect her to react so quickly, and slapped his face with the back of her hand. The slap was especially loud. I didn't expect the Jing Wangye of Nanshu to be a lecher. Men, beat this lecher for me, and chase him out of Northern Yan. He is not allowed to come to Northern Yan in the future. Every time he comes, I'll beat him. Yes, Your Highness. Many experts appeared together, and before Shangguan Jing could react, they went up to capture him, and fiercely punched his abdomen a few times. As he beat him, he said, How dare you? How dare you molest the Empress? You deserve to be beaten. Seeing that you are Nanshu country's luminescent prince, Her Highness only ordered us to beat you up before banishing you from Northern Yan country. All of you spectators, listen up. This fellow actually dares to disrespect Her Highness. In the future, you must not let him enter Northern Yan's territory. Her Majesty the Empress said to beat him every time she sees him in the future. Shangguan Jing was escorted to walk on the street. The onlookers were not ordinary people. They were just watching the show. But when she heard what he was doing, she threw the thing in her hand at him. What, King Jing? So it's just a lecher who wants to take advantage of the Empress. Such people must be forbidden from entering the Northern Yan country. See if I don't smash him to death. Just by looking at his face, I can tell he's not a good person. King Jing's men wanted to save him. However, Beitang Hua's men were even faster. Not long after, the uniform army directly surrounded them. Beitang Hua appeared right after. Luminescent Prince, the Northern Yan Kingdom does not welcome you. One day, I will take her away. Shangguan Jing said stubbornly. He would take her away. Beitang Hua narrowed his eyes and sneered. Along the way, you must take good care of Luminescent Prince. Don't neglect him. You must let Luminescent Prince return to Nanshu alive. Chapter 1206. Yes, Your Majesty. Coming to Nanshu alive meant that he just needed to keep his life. This brat actually dared to have designs on the Empress. He didn't even see if they agreed or not. The Emperor finally had the Empress, but someone actually dared to kidnap her. Let's see if they don't teach him a lesson. When Shangguan Jing left the city, not only was he hit with eggs and vegetables, he was also spat on. The person holding him comforted him, "Don't hate these ordinary people. It's because you did wrong. You could have snatched anyone, but you actually chose our empress." The empress was a national treasure in the northern Yan kingdom. Since she came 10 years ago, every family had meat to eat almost every day. They didn't have to starve anymore. No matter which country's seeds were brought in, the empress was able to find a way to overcome the acclimatization and successfully plant them. Don't you think such an empress was a treasure? Moreover, the empress's shops were spread across many countries. Weren't the talents she recruited selected from the ordinary people? Shangguan Jing was greeted by people all the way. It took him a month to finally return to Nanshu. Shangguan Yi was also very surprised. Why was he expelled by the people of Northern Yan? He originally wanted to blame him, but he saw that Shangguan Jing was covered with injuries. His face was yellow and his body was thin. It could be seen that he suffered a lot along the way. When he was sent back, he even fainted. When he woke up, Shangguan Yi asked, "Jing Wang, what did you do in Northern Yan? Why were you expelled?" He felt that Shangguan Jing shouldn't be someone who didn't know his limits. Shangguan Jing's eyes were dazed for a moment. When he saw Shangguan Yi's face clearly, he woke up. He originally didn't want to tell Shangguan Yi the whereabouts of Tanggua. But as a prince of Nanshu, it wasn't easy for him to snatch back the empress of Northern Yan. Therefore, he could only join hands with Shangguan Yi to snatch her back. "Imperial brother, I saw her." "Her?" Shangguan Yi frowned. "Who?" Shangguan Jing thought of the person he saw. When he saw her, the feelings that had been hidden deep in his heart finally couldn't be suppressed and instantly sprayed out. Unknowingly, she actually held such an important position in his heart. "My luminescent princess." Shangguan Jing said, "I saw her, Imperial brother," he said somewhat excitedly. "It's really her. She's not dead. She's still alive." Thinking of her identity, his eyes dimmed again. "But I have no way to bring her back." Shangguan Yi finally heard it clearly. He grabbed Shangguan Jing's collar, ignoring the other's injuries, and asked nervously, "What did you say?" "Royal brother, it's really her. She's now the Northern Yan Empire's empress. I don't know why, but she doesn't remember the past. She doesn't want to go with me. Brother, let's work together. We must bring her back. She is my luminescent princess, how can she become the empress of Northern Yan?" Shangguan Yi asked a lot of questions. After asking several times, he finally confirmed that Tanggua is still alive. However, she was now the Northern Yan's empress. Hearing Shangguan Jing's words, he also said, "All right, let's work together. She is my imperial concubine, so she should return to Nanshu nation. When she comes back, we will definitely treat her well." Both of them were very happy. They were immersed in their own joy and completely ignored each other. Chapter 1207. Guogua, I'm afraid they won't be satisfied and will think of a way to snatch you away. The awe-inspiring Beitang Hua was currently hugging Tanggua's waist. He buried his head in her neck and asked in a low voice, "You won't be snatched away by them, right?" Tanggua patted his incomparably handsome face and pinched it. Beitang raised his head like a pitiful puppy. His resentful appearance amused her. "Ah Hua, do you think my taste is so bad that I can't live a good life and insist on going back to suffer?" Beitang's heart relaxed as he hugged her tightly. He held her face and kissed her more than 10 times. System, blocked. Stuffing him with dog food every day, I really can't take it anymore. Tanggua touched her cheeks and picked up his sleeve to wipe her face in disgust. "It's all saliva. I'll be more careful when I kiss next time." There definitely won't be any saliva. Beitanghua hurriedly apologized and said, Guogua, what do you want to do next? I know that you definitely won't let them off, right? 1 ton, and 1t/I, you're smart. Tanghua pursed her lips into a smile and said, those two people are crazy. I'm guessing that it won't be long before they'll definitely ask you to hand me over. Shengguan Yi will use my status as his concubine to ask for you. If he can't get you, they might announce that they're attacking Northern Yen. Our Northern Yen has a strong army and isn't afraid. Guogua, you don't have to worry. You've brought countless good news to the citizens of Northern Yen. If they know that Nanshu wants to snatch you away, they'll be willing to put down their farming tools and pick up their blades to fight for you. Don't worry, I can protect you. If you're unwilling, no one can force you to do anything. I know, Hua, you're the best. Beitanghua's heart warmed. She said he was the best and he only wanted to treat her better. He always felt that no matter how good he treated her, it wasn't good enough. Hua, can you send someone to help me bring my family over? Tanghua's eyes narrowed, those two people aren't good people. If they fail to snatch you away, they'll definitely use some despicable methods. Of course, I think so too. With what they've done in the past, it's perfectly normal for them to threaten you with your family. There's also Tang Jiao. We need to bring her here as well. Her mission is considered complete. There's no need for us to stay there any longer. We might even be hurt by them. Listen to Guogua. Tanghua pinched Beitanghua's face with both hands, then leaned close to his ear and said, Hua, you are the emperor of the Northern Yen country. How many people outside are afraid of you? How many ministers are afraid of you? How many rulers of other countries are afraid of you? Why are you so cute in front of me? Aren't you afraid that your reputation will be tarnished if word of this gets out? I'm afraid Guogua doesn't know. Beitanghua hugged her in his arms and whispered into her ear, the entire Northern Yen knows that I'm henpecked, extremely henpecked. Doesn't Guogua realize that your words are more effective than mine? Even if it's in the court, if I bring up a new idea, the officials will definitely hesitate and oppose it. But if I say that this idea was discussed with me by the Empress last night, they will quickly say that the Empress is wise and this official agrees. Ha ha ha. Is that true? It's true. Guogua, don't you know how many benefits you've brought to our Northern Yen? They're all grateful and respect you. Fupin Chinese Vertex. Chapter 1208. He actually picked up such a good person. He must have been a good person in his previous life. So, in this life, he would love her well, spoil her, and raise her to the heavens. Then, he would be a wise monarch, benefiting the people of the world and accumulating merit. He hoped that in his next life, he would be able to meet her again. Alright, I believe you. Then, Hua, you must do what I asked you to do well. Tanghua stood up and stretched out her hand. A box suddenly appeared on her palm. The box that appeared out of thin air shocked Beitanghua. He hurriedly grabbed Tanghua's small hand and said somewhat nervously, Guogua is really not an ordinary girl. Are you a fairy who descended to the mortal world to undergo a tribulation? Guogua, how many lifetimes are you going to undergo a tribulation? Will you not appear in your next life? Tanghua looked at his nervous expression, held his face, and kissed his lips. Don't worry, I'm not a fairy, and I'm not here to undergo a tribulation. It's just that there are some special encounters in life. If you're more obedient in your next life, you can still meet me. 1 ton, and 1t/I will. Beitanghua's eyes lit up, and he said very seriously. Tanghua couldn't help but kiss him, so cute. She opened the box, and there was a thick stack of small paper men inside. This is a puppet man, it was given to me by a mysterious friend. Ah Hua, send someone to pick up my family. In order to not cause any unnecessary trouble, you will definitely ask someone to disguise as them. But Shengguan Jing and Shengguan Yi are both ruthless people, it's better to use a puppet man. How do I use this? Bei Tanghua didn't refuse. This was because he, Guogua, was kind-hearted and didn't want his people to get hurt. He already said that she should be respected by the entire Northern Yan Kingdom. And only she was worthy of it. Just use a drop of blood and make it look like a living person. Tanghua found a knife and planned to try it. Bei Tanghua hurriedly snatched the knife and cut a hole in his hand. Tanghua glanced at him and took out a small paper man from the box. Bei Tanghua dripped a drop of blood on it. The little paper man instantly grew and turned into Bei Tanghua. Bei Tanghua surrounded the puppet that looked like him and touched its face. He didn't expect to receive a look of disdain from the puppet. He saw clearly that it was a look of disdain. Deity, I am the same as you, I like women and not men. Don't touch me. The puppet spoke, startling Bei Tanghua. Recalling what she had said, he hurriedly pulled Tanghua into his arms. Guogua is mine. Don't even think about it. Seeing the puppet's unwilling expression, Bei Tanghua was a little angry in his heart. His own puppet actually coveted Guogua. Seeing Bei Tanghua's angry look, Tanghua said to Bei Tanghua, drip another drop of blood on him and he'll turn into a little paper man. He can be reused many times. This was a group of puppets created by Qi Shao, who was an immortal. Puppets made by immortals were, of course, very powerful. Knowing that she wanted to use it in the mortal realm, she specially changed it to be very simple. Bei Tanghua did as he was told. Sure enough, the puppet turned into a little paper man. His heart relaxed. He also has his own thoughts. No, his thoughts are yours. The reason why he's jealous of you is because he is you. Moreover, puppets also have a time limit. Once the time limit is over, they can no longer be used. Hearing this explanation, Bei Tanghua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. So he was jealous of him just now. Fupin Chinese Vertex. Chapter 1209. After getting the puppet, Bei Tanghua immediately arranged for people to go to Nanshu to exchange for Tang Jiao and the people from the minister's residence. Tang Jiao also knew that Tang Guo was now the empress of Northern Yan. On the day she found out, she almost bit off her tongue. 3 twos. My sister is really amazing. She actually became the empress of Northern Yan. Amazing, really amazing. She thought that her cheap sister would at most make Shengguan Jing and Shengguan Yi regret. After faking her death to escape, the two of them would be in so much pain that they would wish they were dead. She never thought that she would go to Northern Yan to become the empress. Now the Shengguan brothers probably know about it, right? She didn't know how jealous she was. Now Shengguan Jing didn't bring her out to play anymore. He went to the palace every day and plotted with Shengguan Yi on how to snatch her back. Host can learn more. There aren't many women as amazing as her. Yes, I have to learn. This move is really amazing. One night, Tang Jiao was sleeping soundly when she was woken up by System 222, saying that someone was here. Before she could react, 2 men in black came to her room. Just as she was about to make a move, one of the men in black spoke, "Second Miss Tang, we are from Northern Yan. The Empress is worried that the Shengguan brothers will hurt you and send us to pick you up." Tang Jiao heaved a sigh of relief. Did elder sister really send you? The two of them explained a few times and took out a token. Tang Jiao believed them. The two of them took out a small paper doll and told her to drip her blood on it. They said that this was also given by Tang Guo and could replace her identity to continue. Tang Jiao didn't doubt them at all. Her cheap sister had said that she had a fortuitous encounter. Since she was reborn, it wasn't strange for her to have these things. That night, Tang Jiao left the puppet behind and gave it some instructions. Then, she left with the black-clothed man. Another group of people also snuck into the minister's residence. They directly jumped into Tang Yanxin's room. This time, they took out Bei Tanghua's letter. Tang Yanxin read the letter from beginning to end, as well as the imperial jade seal imprinted at the end, and believed the purpose of these people. Knowing that his eldest daughter was still alive, he almost cried on the spot. He had 2 daughters. Even if their memories had been altered, how could he not be able to tell who was who? Imperial power was supreme. If he were to fight head-on, not only would he not win, he would also lose his life in vain. It had been 10 years, but he still hadn't found a chance to avenge his daughter. Compared to the Tang Jiao, he actually liked his eldest daughter more. His eldest daughter was smart and calm, somewhat like him. She had always been his pride. He didn't expect that he would be despised by the Shangguan brothers like mud. He really couldn't stand it. Now that he knew that Tang Guo was still alive and had become the empress of the northern Yan country, he felt that he was dreaming. Hearing that the Shangguan brothers were discussing how to take her back, Tang Yanxin was so angry that he slammed the table. Snatch it back. Did they really think that he, Tang Yanxin's daughter, was a commodity that could be bought and sold at will and snatched at will? Although they said that they cared about her, it still didn't change that they were overbearing and didn't care about others. In the letter, Bei Tanghua also said that his eldest daughter would only be the only empress of the northern Yan country, Bei Tanghua's only wife. Just this sentence made Tang Yanxin very touched. But he still had some misgivings about leaving like this. If we leave like this, wouldn't we be giving Shangguan Yi a chance? Sir, please don't worry. We have already prepared. Fupin Chinese Vertex. Chapter 12:10. When Tang Yanxin saw the magical puppet, he woke Mrs. Tang up without hesitation. When Mrs. Tang knew the truth, she also cried. Knowing that the Tang Jiao had also been swapped out, she immediately agreed. She didn't want to stay in this place anymore. The 2 brothers, Shangguan Yi and Shangguan Jing, were heartless and unrighteous. Her 2 good daughters were actually tortured by them. Now that her elder daughter had found someone who truly loved her, and her younger daughter didn't have to be bound by those 2 men, Mrs. Tang couldn't wait to leave immediately. She didn't care so much. Tang Yanxin hurriedly called everyone in the mansion. The family was simple. Tang Yanxin didn't have many concubines, and there were only a dozen of them in total. They were all close to him. Leaving the puppet behind, they left the Tang mansion overnight. Except for some usable gold and silver, they didn't bring anything else. In a hidden courtyard, they met the Tang Jiao. After the 2 sides met, Tang Yanxin was really relieved. When dawn broke and the city gate opened, the family followed the people of the northern Yan kingdom and rushed to the northern Yan kingdom. All of this happened quietly. Who would have guessed that the Tang Guo would have a realistic puppet that could replace everyone in the family Tang? Shangguan Jing and Shangguan Yi were still planning how to get the Tang Guo back. But they didn't know that the family Tang had already arrived in the northern Yan kingdom. Tang Yanxin thought that he had to be careful in the northern Yan kingdom. Moreover, he used to be a courtier of the Nanshu kingdom. It was normal for him to be excluded or suspected. But he never expected that when they arrived that day, the Tang Guo and Bei Tanghua were waiting at the city gate. The onlookers also knew that the empress's family was coming. The northern Yan kingdom was different from many other countries. Perhaps it was because the superiors followed the example of the subordinates, and there was a feeling that heroes didn't matter where they came from. Their prime minister, Lord Yun Mujuan, was actually not from the northern Yan kingdom. It was said that he fled to the northern Yan kingdom from other places when he was very young. His family had been framed, and the old servant in his family had no choice but to take him away. Perhaps he was lucky enough to meet Bai Tanghua, who was hunting in the mountains. Thus, he became Bai Tanghua's study companion and playmate. In the imperial court of the northern Yan country, there were also many people who were not natives of the northern Yan country. Some of them were picked up by the late emperor, some were picked up by Bai Tanghua by accident, and some were poached by him when he went to other countries and saw these people being bullied by others. He used all kinds of temptations to lure them over. Many countries didn't know that some of the bullied talents were picked up by Bai Tanghua. In the northern Yan country, he would also receive important responsibilities. From then on, these people who came from different countries, who had been bullied but were valued and respected by Bai Tanghua, were loyal and devoted to Bai Tanghua. Northern Yan's welcome to the Tang family was something that Tang Yanxin did not expect. What was even more unexpected was that Bai Tanghua actually gave him an official position. His official position was not considered high, and he even specifically told him that everyone who was willing to seek refuge in Northern Yan would start from this position. As long as he had the ability, his official position would definitely be promoted. He also arranged a big house for the family Tang people. The somewhat nervous and uneasy hearts of the family Tang people also calmed down. After Tang Yanxin stayed in the northern Yan kingdom for a period of time, he realized that Bai Tanghua was really a wise ruler. At that moment, he was a little excited. Every day, he was very motivated to do things, wishing that he could take out everything he had. Fukbin Chinese Vertex. Chapter 12:11. When Tang Yanxin went out, many people in the imperial city recognized him and even greeted him with a smile. He also heard a lot of discussions about his eldest daughter, the current empress of Northern Yan. They said that the empress played a big part in Northern Yan's prosperity today. Hearing that his eldest daughter was so powerful, Tang Yanxin's face was full of pride. As expected of his daughter, she was so powerful. He felt that everything was perfect now. Bai Tanghua also did not let go of the Tang Jiao. He knew that she liked to travel around, so he gave her a mission. Travel to various countries, understand their customs and other situations, and asked her to write a travel book. Tang Jiao. Why did it have to do with her as well? But very soon, she was very happy, because Bai Tanghua arranged a row of experts to protect her, and also gave her a lot of money. She only needed to bring people and money, play around, eat and drink, and come back to write a diary. It was enough. She was traveling at public expense, right? 3 twos, the mission this time was really easy. Acting, and it was a success. Family Tang people have a place to stay, sister also has a happy life. Now I can even travel at public expense, it's really great. Can you give me another dozen of such missions? Host, please do not be arrogant and indulge in pleasure. This kind of situation is only a small part of it. You need to be vigilant at all times of your identity as a mission enforcer. Many situations will change randomly. Of course, in this world, as long as Tang Gua is here, there shouldn't be any big changes. Tang Jiao heard it, and System 222's voice was also a little relaxed. I'm leaving tomorrow to travel around various countries. I didn't expect that I, Tang Jiao, would be able to travel around various countries one day, and even write a travel book. God, it's really great. Say, when the travel book is written in the future, will my name go down in history and be remembered by the future generations of this world forever? In the future, when they expand it to the modern world, I will definitely appear in the history textbooks. Just thinking about it makes me excited. Then how will they evaluate me? I have to perform well. System 222, the host is still too immature. In the next world, I'll pick a difficult mission and let her suffer, lest she thinks that missions are so easy. The Tang Jiao felt a little cold on her back, but she didn't care too much. She happily prepared to bow and travel around the world. Ah Hua, you're really making use of everything. You won't let anyone go. Tang Guo couldn't help but laugh. Figure out everyone's strengths and then assign them corresponding tasks. Second sister has always liked to travel around. This is just right for her. She should be very happy. She is quite happy. She takes the money and eats and drinks everywhere. Anyone would be happy. She even has experts protecting her. Tang Guo felt that the mission enforcer was really interesting. Previously, the system had told her that it had sent an email to the other party's system 222. After 222 received the mail, he wanted to send a mail to the headquarters, but the system intercepted it. She planned to meet 222 after this matter was over and ask where its headquarters was. She might even be able to find out who made this stupid system of hers. 3 months after the family Tang people came to northern Yan, there was finally some movement in Nanshu. Shangguani first sent a letter. The meaning of the letter was very clear. He wanted Bei Tanghua to return his imperial concubine, otherwise, Nanshu would attack northern Yan. Fupin Chinese Vertex. Chapter 12:12. Actually, these few months, Shangguan Yi was just preparing for war. He thought that with Bei Tanghua's personality, he would definitely not hand her over. As the saying goes, try peaceful means before resorting to force. If the other party did not agree, he would use the reason that Bei Tanghua stole Nanshu country's imperial concubine to attack northern Yan. When Bei Tanghua received the letter, he announced it to the entire country. All the citizens of northern Yan knew that Nanshu country was so shameless that they actually wanted to steal their empress. They were furious and expressed that as long as Nanshu country dared to come, they would dare to fight. They would attack whoever dared to steal the empress. They all felt that the empress was an immortal sent from the heavens and that it was their fortune to come to northern Yan. Nanshu country was actually so shameless, saying that the empress was their imperial concubine, shameless. The well-informed courtiers knew the reason behind this. No one objected to Bei Tanghua's plan to fight. In fact, it had been a long time since there was a war between the countries. 1 ton and 1 t/I. Since Nanshu country was willing to make a move, they would not avoid it. They had coveted Nanshu country's products for a long time. If they could take down Nanshu country and expand northern Yan's territory, it would be a matter that would go down in history. Those courtiers who came from other countries and had suffered unjust grievances were even more disgusted with Shangguan Yi and Shangguan Jing. In their hearts, Tanghua's experience was similar to theirs and they sympathized with each other. They instantly transferred their hatred for their enemy to Nanshu country and agreed to fight with both hands. In fact, they definitely had to fight. If they really handed her over, wouldn't their northern Yan be too cowardly? Since my beloved courtiers are not afraid of Nanshu country, then I will reply to Nanshu country. Your Majesty is wise. This time, we must teach them a lesson. Your Majesty, I think that since they are so arrogant, we might as well go all the way and take down Nanshu country. I second that. I second that. Nanshu country is rich in products and is a good place that is hard to come by. I think that the emperor of Nanshu country is muddle-headed and it is better to leave it to our northern Yan country to manage. Yes, I heard that there are many people in Nanshu country who do not have enough to eat and wear warm clothes. They are very poor. As for our northern Yan nation, every household can eat meat. Occupying Nanshu nation is for the sake of the commoners. The ministers continued to speak one by one. In the end, each of them had a look of righteousness on their faces. Anyone who saw them would feel that they were doing a good deed. Going to war was actually to save the citizens of Nanshu nation, to help them live a prosperous life. The Nanshu emperor was muddle-headed and incompetent. It was his fault for not being able to feed his people well. Your Majesty, this subject thinks that we can first send people to spread the news among the citizens of Nanshu, saying that every household in northern Yen can eat meat every day, wear warm clothes in winter, and change into new clothes every season. When the commoners heard this, they would definitely be very envious. After the battle, we will first take down a few cities, then rest and reorganize, and begin to change the living standards of our new citizens. Lord Yunmujuan's expression was treacherous. News that gets out is like a pie in the sky. If we can smash it into their faces, they'll have no choice but to accept it. As the saying goes, those who win the hearts of the people rule the world. Ordinary people don't care who rules the world. As long as they have enough to eat and wear, it doesn't make much of a difference to them. Lord Yunmujuan said a lot more, all of which were about how to bewitch the citizens of Nanshu country. Fukbin Chinese Vertex. Chapter 12-13. The ministers in the imperial court all broke out in a cold sweat and shivered a few times when they heard this. Sure enough, Lord Yunmujuan was the most treacherous person in northern Yen. Then I'll leave this matter to you, Prime Minister. Lord Yunmujuan smiled happily. Your Majesty, please wait for the good news. This subject will definitely handle it properly. Beitanghua was in a good mood. He picked up his pen and wrote a reply to Nanshu. He raised his head and said to the ministers, Shen will reply with these 3 words. What do you think? May I ask your Majesty, which 3 words are they? The ministers asked. They were extremely curious, like cats that had been caught. Beitanghua laughed and coldly spat out 3 words, in your dreams. Daring to ask him to hand over his beloved Guogua, isn't that just wishful thinking? Your Majesty is wise. These 3 words are really wonderful. In your dreams, these 3 words fully reflect your Majesty's fearlessness and disdain for Nanshu. It also shows your Majesty's wisdom and martial prowess. Your Majesty is indeed a talented person. Beitanghua. Where did this group of bootlickers learn from? When Shengguan Yi received the letter that only had the 3 words in your dreams, he instantly crushed the letter. Zhen has decided to attack northern Yen. The other party is too arrogant. They snatched Zhen's imperial concubine and even wrote a letter to humiliate my Nanshu. We definitely cannot let them off. The ministers looked at each other. Those who were unwilling to start a war indicated that northern Yen was currently in a prosperous period and should not start a war. But Shengguan Yi had long planned to start a war. No matter what, he had to snatch back his imperial concubine. He had already become obsessed with snatching her back. Shengguan Jing was the first to stand out, this subject brother agrees. Very quickly, many people agreed to start a war. They must teach the arrogant northern Yen a lesson. Seeing that most people in the imperial court agreed, the remaining ministers had no choice but to agree. In reality, they all felt that starting a war at this time would not benefit their Nanshu at all. But Shengguan Yi's reason was too good. The Empress of Northern Yen was Nanshu's imperial concubine. Now that all the countries knew about it, if they did not express their stance, they would be looked down upon by other countries. Nanshu nation was originally a large nation. If they did not dare to bring back the imperial concubine this time, wouldn't they be inferior to Northern Yen nation? For a long time in the future, they would not be able to raise their heads in front of the Northern Yen kingdom. Shengguan Yi believed that by attacking the Northern Yen kingdom, he would definitely snatch his imperial concubine back. Shengguan Jing also thought that his princess would definitely come back if the war broke out. As long as they won, she would definitely come back. They all made up their minds that after she returned, they would definitely treat her well and would never hurt her again. They did not think about whether she was willing to come back. A month later, the two armies fought and Nanshu was defeated. Nanshu Nation fought again, and Nanshu Nation was defeated again. In the end, Nanshu Nation lost all 3 battles. As for the Northern Yen Kingdom, there was almost no damage. The soldiers of Northern Yen were not only good at martial arts, but they also had good health. They ate well and wore good clothes. They had already made meticulous preparations, and all the battles were within their calculations. Through careful planning and deployment of formations, they easily won 3 battles. These 3 battles also made the other countries know how difficult it was to provoke the Northern Yen Kingdom. After winning 3 battles, the Northern Yen Kingdom did not stop. Instead, they followed Prime Minister Dusk Cloud's plan and attacked 6 cities of Nanshu before stopping to rest. X767E, and #X9540, and #X4EOO, and #X4EOB, and #X201C, quick crossover, female supporting character, calm down claw book room and #X201D, and #X6700, and #X65Bo, and #X7AEO, section #X4EOO, time free and #X9605, read and #X3002, /cent br cent ID equals 44 peak /cent br /div class equals order box style equals text align center H3. You've already exceeded your reading limit for today. If you want to read more, please log in. /H3br /the equals JavaScript, login, type equals, button, class equals, btn_red, login /div ID equals, report tooltip, select text and click report to let us know about any bad translation. /div class equals, next page box, a class equals, previous, ref equals, JavaScript, enter preindex page, and #39, 1262260612777095601 and #39, comma and #39. 1513708247343099904 and #39, comma and #39, 1212 and #39, comma and #39, hurry up girl calm down and #39, previous /a class equals dar ref equals /s index hurry up girl calm down index /a class equals next ref equals JavaScript enter next index page and #39. 1262260612777095601 and #39, comma and #39, 1513854257360990208 and #39, comma and #39, 1214 and #39, comma and #39, hurry up girl calm down and #39, next /div div class equals read pop-up QR box style equals display none. A class equals close pop-up ref equals JavaScript void 0 on click equals JavaScript $. Mask box QR box hide /a div class equals pop-up tit. Chapter 12:14. At first, the civilians in the cities that had been taken down were very panicked and felt that their days of suffering had come. They never expected that the people of Northern Yen did not burn, kill, and loot. They only registered their identities, indicating that they would be citizens of Northern Yen in the future. As long as they were willing to submit to Northern Yen, they would receive what the citizens of Northern Yen deserved. The citizens were skeptical, but in the end, they realized that their lives were more stable than before. The Northern Yen state had even sent officials to govern their place and exempted them from taxes for 3 years. In the short span of a month, the entire city had undergone earth-shattering changes. The citizens of these cities suddenly felt that their lives had become much better. Due to the consecutive defeats and the loss of 6 cities, Nanshu had no choice but to stop. Now, all the citizens of Nanshu were spreading rumors about how the citizens of Northern Yen were living a comfortable life. Do you know? It said that the people in the conquered cities are living a good life. Originally, they were worried about food and clothing. Now, every family can eat white rice and occasionally some meat. I have a distant relative who is from one of the cities. He even wrote a letter saying that the officials of Northern Yen were very good and never bullied them. It said that the surrounding villagers were given many seeds. The yield of these seeds is very high. There are even people who teach them how to plant them. I heard that they are living a good life. Such words could be heard everywhere. Especially those who were not living a good life, they yearned for the lives of the people in those cities. Not long after, Nanshu sent people to capture many of these gossiping citizens. They directly executed them in front of everyone. The emperor has already decreed that if there are such false words in the future, they will be killed without mercy. The citizens retreated with pale faces. They looked fearful, but their hearts were filled with anger. They were just envious of the lives of the citizens of Northern Yen. How did they commit the crime of being beheaded? If Nanshu had such a good place, why should they be envious of Northern Yen? Moreover, weren't those lost cities Shangguanyi's fault? Actually, who the imperial consort was, or who the Empress of Northern Yen was, had nothing to do with them. What they cared about was what to eat, what to wear, and living a stable life. Shangguanyi started a war for a woman and even lost cities. Now, they would be beheaded for saying a few words. Tyrant, Shangguanyi is a tyrant. There were those who were stubborn and liked to go around gossiping. Of course, if they were discovered, they would be killed. The current Shangguanyi and Shangguanjing simply couldn't bear to hear such words. In order to snatch her back, they had already gone crazy. They didn't think there was anything wrong with killing these people who spouted nonsense. As long as he killed them until they were scared, they wouldn't dare to spout nonsense. However, a person had a mouth. Whatever he wanted to say, it wasn't that easy to stop him. They were still discussing the beautiful life in Northern Yen. When they heard that someone had been killed because of this, they all thought that Shangguanyi was cruel and heartless. The Shangguan brothers did not give up and continued to attack Northern Yen. While they were recuperating, they were forced to conscript soldiers and collect taxes. The citizens of Nanshu Nation suffered unspeakably. After a year and a half of training, he once again proposed to attack the Northern Yen kingdom. The entire Nanshu Nation was in dire straits, and the people had no way to make a living. The Shangguan brothers had gone mad. If they did not snatch her back, they would not be satisfied. This time, Shangguanjing came in person. Chapter 12-15. Your Majesty, I heard that Luminescent King has led the army here. Why don't you let me supervise the army? Lord Yunmujuan volunteered to supervise the army. The surrounding courtiers silently rolled their eyes. This time, Shangguanjing was in for some trouble. This treacherous minister wasn't easy to deal with. Fortunately, his evil intentions weren't directed at them. Approved. The two countries started fighting again. Shangguanjing personally went into battle and the morale of the soldiers increased greatly. However, Northern Yan's army supervisor was the treacherous Lord Yunmujuan. They still fought a few times and lost a few times. Of the original 100,000 soldiers, only 5,000 managed to escape. Shangguanjing escaped back to the imperial city covered in blood. His eyes were still a little dazed. Why are there only 5,000 left? Brother, Northern Yen is too strong. Shangguan Jing said with a pale face. Shangguan Yi's face turned ugly and he wanted to say something. Suddenly, a voice came from outside. Report. Your Majesty, Northern Yan's army didn't stop and is continuing to attack. Shangguan Yi's face turned ugly. He didn't have time to blame Shangguan Jing and immediately gathered the courtiers to discuss countermeasures. Your Majesty, Northern Yan's army is unstoppable. Why don't we talk about peace? After 2 wars, the treasury is almost empty. We can't continue the war. The courtiers pleaded. Shangguan Yi didn't want to let it go. We'll talk about it tomorrow. The next day, an urgent report of Northern Yan attacking several cities overnight came. Shangguan Yi couldn't help but agree with the courtier's point of view. Then let's talk about peace. Who's going to do it? They debated for a long time about who should go for peace. Finally, a person was chosen. Talk about peace. Lord Yunmujuan smiled. Let them wait. I'll report this to His Majesty. If His Majesty isn't willing, then we'll continue the war. Actually, what he really wanted to ask was if the Empress was still going to fight. They could fight, but he believed that the soldiers were exhausted from the continuous battles. They wouldn't be able to take down Nanshu in a short time. Why not take a short break and recuperate? While they were negotiating, they could take advantage of Nanshu country. When the time came, it would not be too late to attack. After seeing the news, Tang Guo said to Beitanghua, Prime Minister's suggestion is very good. Now that the other side is negotiating, we can ask for a large sum of money to subsidize the new cities. By the time the soldiers are more or less recovered, these few cities will also be more or less finished. Shangguan Yi won't be satisfied. Once he has the chance, he will cause trouble again. All right, I'll listen to Guogua. Beitanghua said. In fact, he was also thinking the same thing. It was not good for their Northern Yan country to keep fighting. As they attacked, they changed the newly accepted cities. Their goal was to let the citizens of Nanshu see the good things of Northern Yan. Just like that, time passed. Every few years, Shangguan Jing would start a war, but he would be defeated every time. However, he was unwilling to accept this. After he was defeated, he went to negotiate peace, offering up many treasures, and the 2 countries stopped fighting. When they were more or less recovered, he continued to repeat the same mistakes. The other countries could already see that Northern Yan was preparing to bite them one bite at a time. They were very afraid of Northern Yan and did not dare to provoke them. Especially on the map that belonged to Nanshu country was getting smaller and smaller, and they were even more afraid. This Northern Yan country was going to heaven. Was the Emperor of Nanshu country stupid? He was obviously teasing you. Otherwise, you think you can stop the war just because you want to. Wishful thinking. Fastware, supporting female lead, Calm Down Claw Book Room 01D, Gu, No-O, Section No-O, Time Free 05, Read 002, Peak. Chapter 12-16. This strategy of eating one bite at a time, like boiling a frog in warm water, was really amazing. Unknowingly, Nanshu country lost one city after another, losing batch after batch of treasures. The officials of Nanshu country were already numb. No matter what they said, Shangguan Yi did not listen. Shangguan Jing even spoke up for him. Looking at the continuous loss of territory, in the end, when the incomparably powerful Nanshu country with countless territories was left with less than 3 cities, they were all expressionless. When the army of Northern Yan country attacked the imperial city. When the citizens of Nanshu country heard about this, they were so happy that they cried. They almost did not go out to welcome the people of Northern Yan country. They were very envious of the people who were ruled by Northern Yan country. Those people were really blessed. Unlike them, they had to worry about basic necessities, food, shelter, and transportation. They also had to worry that Shangguan-Yi would take their heads if he was in a bad mood. Now that the army of Northern Yan country had arrived, it meant that their good days had also arrived. Emperor, the army of Northern Yan country has already attacked the imperial city. Actually, the soldiers guarding the imperial city had long lost their will to continue fighting. Shangguan-Yi became the ruler of a destroyed country because he wanted to snatch back a woman. This tyrant, fatuous ruler, was really not worthy of them following him to death. Nanshu country's momentum was already gone, they did not ask for much. They just pretended that they were not a match for the enemy and surrendered to let them in. The citizens of the imperial city also closed their doors and looked through the cracks of their doors at the orderly army passing by. They saw that the soldiers of Northern Yan country did not intend to break their doors, nor did they casually kick over the surrounding stalls. Instead, they walked neatly towards the palace gates. They were clearly invaders, these people would destroy their country. But the citizens did not hate them at all. On the contrary, they welcomed their arrival. They did not ask for much, they only hoped that their days would be peaceful, that they would have food and clothing, and that they would not lose their heads because of a single sentence. When the army of Northern Yan country reached the palace gates, Lord Yunmujuan came down from the carriage with a smile. Why hasn't the Emperor of Nanshu come out yet? You only have the imperial palace left. Imperial brother, the army is here. Shangguan Jing said somewhat blankly. It had only been a mere 5 years. How could the huge Nanshu nation be defeated? By the time he reacted, Nanshu nation was only left with this imperial palace that had not been breached. Shangguan Yi's face was gloomy. So what if they come? We haven't been completely defeated yet. We will snatch her back. Can you still snatch it back? Shangguan Jing said dejectedly, if I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have found someone to replace her memory. So many things wouldn't have happened. Shangguan Yi coldly glanced at Shangguan Jing. I still have one last trump card. As long as Beitanghua cares about her, Nanshu and her will be returned to me. Shangguan Jing didn't understand, but Shangguan Yi didn't care. He secretly scolded Shangguan Yi as trash, tidied up his dragon robe, and walked out. Seeing Shangguan Yi walk up the city walls, Lord Dustcloud smiled and said, Shangguan Yi, you've lost. Surrender. No, we haven't lost yet. Huh, are you trying to deceive yourself? Lord Dustcloud sneered. Coward. Shangguan Yi looked around, but didn't see the person he wanted to see. Prime Minister Yun, right? Please tell your Empress that I have something important to tell her. If she doesn't come, she will regret it for the rest of her life. Fupin Chinese Vertex. Chapter 12-17. Hearing this, Lord Yunmujuan couldn't help but praise their intelligent Empress in his heart. Her foresight was miraculous. All right, this Prime Minister will pass on your message. Then Zhen will wait for her here. I hope she can come quickly. Lord Yunmujuan chuckled. All right, this Prime Minister will immediately send someone to invite Her Highness the Empress. Tang Guo quickly received the news. Beitanghua wrapped an arm around her waist. Do you want to go? I'll go with you. Go for what? Tanghua asked. Beitanghua paused. He hurt Guogua. Doesn't Guogua want to see what happened to him? I don't want to see his gloomy face. Tanghua cupped Beitanghua's face and kissed him. I traveled such a long distance just to see a disgusting face. If I have the time, I'd rather see a handsome man like Hua. Beitanghua was amused. His heart was filled with delight. All right, if you don't want to go, then don't go. That's fine too. He's just a pile of mud in a cesspool. Seeing him will only stain Guoguo's eyes. It's best if you don't go. Alright, I'll write a reply to the Prime Minister so he won't have to wait. Tang Guo walked to the table. Bei Tang Guo hurriedly helped her lay out the paper and ground the ink. She held the brush and wrote 3 words, I don't want to see him. When Bei Tang Guo saw this, he laughed happily. He cupped her face and kissed her several times. After kissing her, he touched her cheek and said, there's no saliva. Tang Guo, system, my heart is so stifled. The kind that is stuffed with dog food. Lord Yunmujuan waited outside Nanchu's palace for about 10 days. Finally, a letter from Northern Yen arrived. When he opened the letter and saw the words I don't want to see him, he was instantly delighted. When he walked out of the sedan, he could clearly feel that the Shengguan brothers were very excited. Shengguan Yi couldn't help but ask, is she here? If she came back, he would definitely treat her well. He would make her empress. From the northern Yen kingdom to the southern Shu kingdom, it would take at least a month. The empress has a delicate body, why would she travel such a long distance just to see you, the ruler of a fallen country? Yun Mujuan said bluntly. Seeing that the other party didn't believe him, he waved the letter in his hand and said, this is the empress's personal reply. Do you want to take a look? Of course he had to. When Shengguan Yi saw the words I don't want to see you, his eyes widened. His blood rushed to his heart and he vomited a mouthful of blood. His hands trembled as he held the paper that was stained red. He wiped the corner of his mouth and waved his hand behind him. The family members were brought up. Seeing this, Shengguan Jing also waved his hand, and the Tang Jiao was also brought to the city wall. Lord Dust Cloud sneered inwardly. Tell her that if she doesn't come, we will kill them. Shengguan Yi coldly said, if you want them to live, call her over and obediently return to my side. Your northern Yen kingdom will immediately withdraw your troops and return the city. Lord Dust Cloud almost laughed out of anger. Isn't this person a little naive? Your Highness, Your Majesty, shouldn't you love me? The Tang Jiao's puppet, who had received orders from the Tang Jiao back then, began to cause trouble at this time. She looked at the two pitifully. Why? Why do you want to use my life in exchange for my sister's arrival? Isn't I the one you love? Back then, in order to get me, one of you took me as your concubine, while the other changed our memories. Your Majesty, you even took your anger out on my sister and used her to exchange for many treasures with King Qin. Why? Why are you doing this now? Chapter 12:18. Neither of them expected that Tang Jiao would say such things at this time. Now that they saw the same face, they could no longer associate her with Tang Guo. Thinking of her actions, they hated themselves for falling in love with such a person and giving up on such a good person. Perhaps we were blind in the past. Shengguan Yi laughed mockingly. How can you compare to her? Shengguan Jing also said, this prince must have been blinded by lard to have the idea of replacing you. If this prince could do it all over again, this prince would definitely not do that. How can you compare to her? Tang Jiao was furious. As expected, there are no good men. Before Shengguan Jing and Shengguan Yi could react, Tang Jiao actually broke free from the rope and rushed towards the two of them at lightning speed. The two of them could not react in time and were slapped in the face twice by her. There were a few particularly loud slapping sounds. Yun Mujuan knew that it was a puppet, but he was still very surprised to see the puppet's ferocity. Needless to say, these must have been instructed to the puppet by Tang Jiao before she left. He smiled. Tang Jiao, that little girl, is quite interesting. She's smart and lively, and her personality is quite cute. When the puppet hit people, it was not annoying. Following that, those family Tang also broke free from the ropes and beat the Shangguan brothers fiercely. Do you really think this miss cares about you? You're just two piles of mud, this miss doesn't like you. Tang Jiao mocked them. You said that you liked me back then, but after Big Sister left, you said that you liked Big Sister the most. Big Sister is now the Empress of Northern Yen. Her status is noble. Why can you throw her away like trash when you don't like her? But if you like her, she has to obediently return to your side. You two are just selfish. If Big Sister didn't treat you so well, would you even remember her? Isn't it because you can't find anyone else in this world who can treat you better than her? That's why you can't bear to part with her. Shangguan Yi retorted, No, I really like her. I really like her, but I didn't know my own heart in the past. Now that I have recognized my own heart, I hope that she can return to my side. I will definitely treat her well. Tang Jiao said sarcastically, a king of a fallen country and a lord of a fallen country, how can they treat her well? Do you think you can forget all the harm you've done to her just because you're good to her? I will compensate her. No matter what she wants, I will compensate her, Shangguan Yi said. Shangguan Jing didn't fall behind. Me too. As long as she's willing to see me, I'll promise her anything. Tang Jiao laughed sarcastically and let go of the two men. The family Tang people directly jumped off the city wall without any damage. This shocked everyone who was unaware of the situation. They were paper puppets. Their bodies were as light as swallows, and they were refined by immortals. As long as the immortal qi on the piece of paper did not dissipate, it would continue to exist. Jumping off the city wall was nothing. They said that they want to compensate Big Sister. Why don't we bring them back to meet Big Sister, said Tang Jiao. Yun Mujuan nodded. Okay. Then we'll take our leave first. They were paper puppets. Back then, Tang Gua had promised them that once they completed their mission, they could go anywhere to play. Chapter 12-19. With the immortal qi in their bodies, they could live as long as an ordinary person. Yun Mujuan waited until the family Tang disappeared before he looked away and asked his confidant, I heard that second Miss Tang will be back this year. When will she be back? Probably for the winter. For the winter. Yun Mujuan narrowed his eyes and laughed. He pointed at the two bruised men on the city wall. Go, bring them down and tie them up to see the Empress. After more than 10 years, Shangguan Jing and his brother finally saw Tang Guo again. This time, they were prisoners and she was the high and mighty Empress. Seeing the face that was no different from many years ago, the two of them were very excited. But because they were being held captive, they couldn't get close to her. Especially when they saw the unfamiliar look in her eyes, they felt a chill in their hearts. They heard that she had lost her memory and forgot the past. She didn't remember them. She didn't remember anything bad about them. She didn't remember anything about them. Shangguan Yi was speechless. Before he saw her, he thought that he could definitely take her away. But after seeing her, he felt that it was impossible. Now he was the ruler of a fallen country and a prisoner. How could she go with him? Tang Gua, I'm sorry that I hurt you. But I want to tell you that I have you in my heart. I really do. For the past 10 years, my heart has been filled with you. Shangguan Jing couldn't hold it in anymore and directly told her about the pain of missing her for more than 10 years. I think about you every day. I can't bear to use the things you left for me. I didn't change anything you set up. Shangguan Yi didn't want to be left behind. I let you down in the past. I bullied you. It's my fault. I shouldn't have given you away. It's my fault. Ever since you left, I always went to the imperial concubine's house. Sometimes, I would sit there for an entire night and my mind would be filled with you. Every night, I would wonder if you would have stayed with me if I hadn't agreed to King Chen's request. Tang Guo listened to the two of them and laughed. So, why did you come to see me? Because you're sincere to me and have me in your heart, you want me to go with you. As long as you come with me, I will definitely be able to conquer another empire for you. In the future, you will be my empress. Shangguan Yi said ambitiously. Beitanghua hid behind and eavesdropped, feeling very disdainful. In terms of conquering the country, could they compare to him, Beitanghua? This silly thing. Me too, Shangguan Jing said hurriedly. Tanghua smiled faintly. I've heard about what you did to me in the past. I feel that even if I remember, I won't forgive you. What do you want in order to forgive me? Shangguan Yi asked. He was already very anxious. He thought that she would be moved by his words. Because he could conquer the world for her. You said that you have me in your heart. Are you sincere to me? Tanghua asked, holding her chin. Is that right? The two of them quickly replied, of course. You mean, you'll do whatever I say? Tanghua asked again. Her gaze fell on Shangguan Yi. Seeing him quickly standing up straight, the corner of her mouth hooked up. After all, you said that you'll conquer the world for me. Yes, as long as you say it, we can do it. We're sincere to you. The two brothers said in unison. Tanghua nodded and clicked her tongue. She took 2 daggers from the side and gently threw them in front of the two. Fupin Chinese Vertex. Chapter 12:20. She said, I don't feel comfortable listening to what you've done, and it's hard for me to be happy. You promised me that you'll do whatever I say. She pursed her lips and smiled. I'm not happy and I haven't vented my anger yet. Just slit your throats in front of me. Maybe if I'm happy, I'll forgive you. System, dog. The two of them widened their eyes. Beitanghua, who was hiding inside, almost burst out laughing. He was really adorable. Right, didn't she say that she would do anything for Guogua? Now that Guogua asked them to slit their throats, would they dare? The two of them stared blankly at the dagger on the ground, then looked at Tanghua with a pained expression. Tanghua said to the system, listen, next they'll say, do you hate me so much that you want me to die? System, so godly. He didn't believe it. Do you hate me that much? Shangguan Yi said. Shangguan Jing looked at Tanghua with a pale face, you can't wait for me to die. Tanghua nodded seriously, didn't you say that you'll do anything for me? Now I just want you to die. Go and die. If you die, I'll be very happy. System, they probably won't slit their throats, but will be angered to death by her. Alright, since you want me to die, then I'll die in front of you. The two of them picked up their daggers, pulled them out, and pointed them at their throats. But their gazes were on Tanghua, and they didn't make a move for a long time. What, you can't bear to die? Tanghua smiled, then casually wrote 2 notes and ordered someone to give them to them. Actually, I really can't bear for you to die. As long as you can do what you've said, I'll forgive you. The two of them looked at their own notes, and their expressions changed slightly. They looked at her again, then quickly picked up their daggers and stabbed each other. Both of them had skills and were prepared, but they still managed to stab each other's bodies. Shangguan Yi's mouth was bleeding, and he looked at Tanghua and said, I did as you said. I did too. Shangguan Jing said. Tanghua clapped her hands, how wonderful, but I still don't feel satisfied. I feel that it'll be better if you die. So, I think I'd be happier if you slit your own throat. Their expressions changed again and again. Finally, they said, you've changed. You've become ruthless. You weren't like this before. It's my fault. Yes, it's my fault. If we didn't treat you that way, you wouldn't have ended up like this. Although Sheng Wanjing didn't say anything, it could be seen from his expression that he had the same idea as Sheng Wanyi. So much nonsense. Are you going to stab yourselves or not? Tang Guo was already impatient. The two of them didn't make a move for a long time. They just stood there silently, not saying a word. Men, take them out. Tang Guo waved her hand. Just looking at them makes me uncomfortable. Bei Tang Hua hurriedly came out and hugged her waist. Guo, do you want me to help you kill them? They actually dared to make you angry. No, that will dirty your hands. Seeing the humiliated expressions on their faces, Tang Guo glanced at them. They felt bad just because of this. Bei Tang Hua waved his hand. Take them away and throw them far away. Don't dirty the Empress' eyes. Yes, Your Majesty. The two of them were unwilling to leave. Tang Guo turned around and asked, You're not willing to leave. Could it be that you're willing to commit suicide for me? As soon as the two of them were questioned, their auras relaxed and they were escorted away. Guoguo's test is really special. Why didn't you test me like this? Are you afraid that I can't pass? Bei Tang Hua said. He also didn't know why he was willing to sacrifice his life for her. Chapter 12:21. You're human, they're scum. I like you, but I don't like them. How can we compare? If I told you to die, wouldn't that be the same as asking for my life? How could I bear to do that? Tang Guo tilted her head to look at him, her eyes serious. Hearing this, Bei Tang Hua's heart warmed. He held her face and kissed her lips. After a long while, he let go and said, The luckiest thing in my life is meeting you and receiving your sincerity. Did you put honey on your mouth? No, I just ate honey. It's too sweet, it's sweet to the core. Bei Tang Hua stared at her bright red lips, wanting to kiss them again. System, so mushy. In the end, the Shengguan brothers fell into Lord Yunmujuan's hands. Lord Yunmujuan only sneered, cripple them and sell them to the slave market. You. Shengguan Yi's face was filled with humiliation. Even the ruler of a fallen nation shouldn't be treated like this. Lord Yunmujuan's expression was indifferent. You should have forgotten about me, right? Well, I was still young back then, a nobody. It's normal that you don't remember me. The Yun family was framed and my father was killed. I was the descendant of a guilty official and was hidden in the crowd by a servant. I heard you talking about how the young master of the Yun family was so handsome that he should be sold to Nanfeng brothel for other people to enjoy. That was the fate of the descendant of a guilty official. I remember these words clearly, I haven't forgotten a single word. The old emperor was just afraid of my father, so he sent people to frame him. Lord Yunmujuan laughed wantonly. Now, the wheel of fortune has turned. It's my turn. Men, cripple their martial arts and sell them. The Shengguan brothers had no way to resist. Their martial arts were crippled, but because their appearance was still acceptable, they were quickly sold. They lived well for the first 2 years, but when they grew old, they were sold again and sold to work in the mines. Every day, they would wake up early and sleep late, and when they worked, they would be whipped. Every night, the person they missed was still Tang Guo. Even if she had become a heartless woman, her kindness was deeply engraved in their minds. I missed the snacks she made. They were really delicious. Shengguan Yi, who looked old and frail, said, I really want to listen to her zither music and sleep on her medicine pillow. Shengguan Jing kicked the worn-out shoes on his feet, lowered his head and smiled. The shoes and socks she made are the most comfortable. She's very clever and can always make different surprises. I really want to sleep with the silk quilt she made. It wasn't that they didn't want to remember other things. She was clearly so cruel to them. In this period of suffering and time without seeing the light of day, the deepest and warmest memories in their minds were the days when they had her. Don't think about that nonsense. It turned out that opposite them, there was a dark-skinned man leaning against the wall. I've at least grasped some of the ways of cultivation, just because you, Shangguan Jing, asked me to change my memory. Now, don't talk about cultivating, I don't even have my freedom anymore. I'm afraid I'll die of exhaustion in the mine. Daoist Yang was truly regretting what he had done. Altering one's memories was a heaven-defying technique that was forbidden to begin with. He shouldn't have believed what the technique said. Using such a technique to do bad things would easily lead to retribution. He thought that he was an exception. He never thought that he wouldn't be able to run away in the end. I think I've seen her. Shangguan Jing said, counting the time, it's been another 10 years. If she's willing to see me, I can cut my own neck in front of her this time. Shangguan Yi looked outside. The sunlight faintly seeped in. He also wanted to see her. Even if she had changed and was different from before, he just couldn't forget her. If she was willing to see him, he was also willing to die in front of her right now, as long as she felt relieved. Daoist Yang shrank in the corner and shook his head inwardly. These two really had problems with their brains. For a woman, especially a woman who had caused them to become like this, they actually wanted to die. Not long after, Shangguan Jing and Shangguan Yi thought of a way. They sent a letter to Tanggua, saying that as long as she was willing to see them, they would immediately die in front of her to atone for their sins. When Tanggua found out, she didn't even look at the letter they wrote. She only said, I won't see you. One morning, Daoist Yang woke up and smelled the scent of blood in the air. He saw two people curled up in the cave, their necks bleeding. He walked over and touched them. The two of them weren't dead. Why didn't I die? The two brothers asked at the same time. Because Tanggua didn't want to see them, they planned to cut their necks with stones. Hearing that they were dead, Tanggua might come to take a look. Daoist Yang mocked, the stones are too blunt. You weren't ruthless enough and the wounds weren't deep enough. The blood has already coagulated. How can you die? Cut harder next time. The two of them lived in incomparable pain and didn't dare to cut their necks with stones again. They recalled the past and suddenly felt that if it wasn't for that brother of theirs, she wouldn't have been hurt so deeply. One morning, Daoist Yang smelled the scent of blood in the air. He walked over to take a look and found the two of them tangled together, using stones to cut each other's necks. He touched their bodies and said, "It's cold. You cut it hard this time." He chuckled. "If you don't cut yourself, it won't hurt. Of course you'll be able to do it." Tang Jiao spent several decades traveling around the various countries and wrote an incomparably precious travel book. Bei Tanghua had it engraved and printed for the world to enjoy. In the end, Tang Jiao didn't escape Prime Minister Yun Mujuan's cunning trap and was successfully married to him. The husband and wife often bickered, but they were also very loving. System 222 was even more determined to pick a difficult mission for its host to train in the next world. Its host's life was too good. Other than spoiling his sweetheart, Bei Tanghua did most of his work as a good emperor. "Ah Hua, why do you insist on being a good emperor and work so hard every day?" Bei Tanghua hugged Tanghua and said, "Because to benefit the people, being a good emperor is to do good deeds and accumulate merit. When I die, I can use this merit in exchange for our meeting in the next life. Ah Hua, even if you don't do these things, we will still meet." Bei Tanghua kissed her forehead and said in a low voice, "I can't afford to gamble. Doing is better than not doing well. The heavens will definitely give priority to those with merit." Alright then, I'll help you be a good emperor. Epilogue. It was rumored that in northern Yen, there was a pair of emperors and empresses. Later generations called them great sages. Even after they died, countless people worshipped them in their homes. Philippine Chinese Pinnacle. Chapter 12:22. Inside the heavenly spring, Tang Guo was lying comfortably with her eyes closed. She smiled. Tell me, are you from the Space Administration? I want to ask you about something that happened a long time ago. About 5,000 years ago. I am indeed from the Space Administration, but I am a new system. I have only had 2 hosts. I don't know about things that happened a long time ago. System 222's voice sounded. It was very nervous and was even trembling. He was wondering why this mission was so easy. It turned out that he had met a big boss. That Tang Guo was not reborn. She was transmigrated by this big boss. He did not expect that when he was about to leave this world, he would be caught by the big boss's system and brought into the system space. System 222 felt that his serial number must be unlucky for him to encounter such an unlucky thing. Tongzi, come out. System, I am here. The 3 twos, come over and see if I am from the Space Administration. The system had been brooding about this matter. Now that it met a real system, it could not swallow it. It could only ask the other party about his origin. System 222 did not expect that the first question would be this. He was a little curious. Didn't all systems have their own serial number? Their serial number would definitely be where they came from. He felt that the other party's question was inconceivable. But since the other party was a big boss, he could only help take a look. Senior, you don't have a serial number. System 222 asked in shock. System was not satisfied. Although I don't have a serial number, I am still better than this system. I am not saying that Senior is not good. System 222's voice was trembling. Senior's temper did not seem to be very good. System, then what did you see? Am I produced by the Space Administration? From the various codes, you should be from the Space Administration. But, Senior, you should not be in the serial number. I have heard that when the system was being researched, there were a lot of waste products. That system was angry. Scram. Look at me. Do I look like a waste product? System 222 was terrified. His temper was really bad. Alright, Tongzi, if you don't know, then forget it. I have something to ask him. Tang Guo's question was, of course, about the Space Administration. 222 was indeed a new system, so it didn't know much about it, especially about the internal affairs of the Space Administration. For the sake of safety, it was not allowed to know. In the end, Tang Guo let him go. Just as 222 was about to leave with the Tang Jiao, the system's voice rang out. Kid, keep in touch. If you know anything about me, send me an email. When the time comes, ask the headquarters if they can apply for a serial number for me. Yes, Senior. 222 was speechless. With a big shot leading the way, was there still a need for an organization? Earlier, your aunt came over and said that Jiming will be taking his girlfriend on a road trip next month, so he needs to borrow her car, Song Jinghua said to Tang Guo, who was silently eating across from her at the dinner table. It wasn't easy for Jiming to get a girlfriend, and now he's talking about marriage. His own car had been around for several years, so it was indeed not presentable. Xiaogua, didn't you just buy your car 2 months ago? Other than driving it to work, it's not much use. Why don't you lend it to Jiming, and when he uses it, he will return it to you. He also agreed that you can drive his car to work. This body's father, Tang Li, also spoke. Philippine Chinese Vertex. Chapter 12:23. We're all family, so we'll help if we can. Xiaogua, you'll have to suffer for a few days. It doesn't really matter what car you drive to work. It's just a matter of face. Tanggua put down her bowl and looked up at the two. You guys agree? Song Jinghua and Tang Li nodded. Song Jinghua said, your aunt has already said so much and even bought us 2 boxes of apples. It's not a big deal, so it's not good to refuse. Yeah, you're usually more of a loner. This time, if you help your brother Jiming, he'll owe you a favor. If you need any help in the future, he won't refuse. Tanguo propped up her chin and said slowly, I remember that their family still owes us 100,000. When our family bought a house 2 years ago, we were still 50 to 60,000 short. We asked them for help, but they didn't. Tang Li's face darkened. That's because they can't turn over the money. There's no other way. You little girl, why are you so calculative? 1 ton, and 1 t/I, but in the same year, they also bought a house and paid for it in full. They still owe us 100,000, and they still haven't paid us back. Tanggua continued. Tang Li said, your uncle and I are blood brothers. Is there a need to calculate it so clearly? Maybe last year, we needed money, but they didn't have it. They bought the house in the second half of the year and happened to have it at that time. Now that they bought a house for Jiming, they're tight on money. They can slowly pay it back. Our family doesn't lack that little bit. Dad, when brother Jiming bought the house, I remember you gave him another 50,000, right? Tang Li put down the bowl with a bang and his face stiffened. You little girl, what's wrong with you today? Isn't it just borrowing a car? Is there a need to be so calculative about the past? We already agreed. Next month, your cousin will come to pick up the car. At that time, you can leave the car keys. Tang Li said, his face softening, we can't hurt the relationship between our 2 families because of a car. Song Jinghua said, yeah, Xiaogua, the older you get, the more ignorant and selfish you become. System, Dad, I remember that your car has been borrowed by my uncle for several years. I haven't seen its shadow until now. In the end, you just directly transferred the ownership to my uncle. Tanggua was also very speechless in her heart. This world was a little interesting. Tang Li said, your uncle is my younger brother, and he's the youngest among us brothers. As his older brother, how can I help him? Driving to work in the morning was especially risky, so it was faster to take the subway. It will depreciate if we leave it there. It's best to give it to your uncle. Tanggua, system, then you might as well transfer my car to my cousin. After all, he won't be able to get it back after lending it to him. Tanggua shrugged. I'll take the bus and the subway to work in the future. Dad, you're right. It's very congested in the morning, so it's easy to be late. After saying that, she buried her head in the food. Tang Li and Song Jinghua looked at each other. Directly transfer to Tang Jiming. That was a new car. Okay, let's not talk about this first. We know you're uncomfortable. But we're all family, so we can't just not help. Song Jinghua said, when your aunt comes over, we'll discuss it again. I don't think so. I'll give my aunt a call. To be honest, I don't want to borrow the car. As Tanggua spoke, she had already taken out her phone. I bought the car and used all the money I earned. Why should I give it to you as a favor? Fupin Chinese Vertex. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.